Hi, welcome back guys. This is your friend, the MHA What If with another fanfiction. This is the second part of What If Deku Became the Angel of Chaos? All credits for this video go to their respective authors, so please support the real author. Check out the link in the description for more details. Please give this video a like and subscribe to the channel if you want more videos like this. Now let's get into the fanfic. A few days after the sports festival, everyone came back to the school to find it even more infested with people, press, and heroes that heard that Deku was being confined there and wanted the story and a lot of cops in order to keep them from charging the gates and the approaching students. Why won't you let us in? Why is the UA staff the only one allowed to interview Deku? He is a menace and needs to face justice? These are some of the things the crowd said as Hitoshi made his way to the classroom, where a few students were already there, all talking about the sports festival and Deku. He was amazing. Remember how he took out those guys in 1B? He barely broke a sweat through the whole festival. He is awesome. I agree, but he was still a little harsh. While they talk and the others soon arrive, Aizawa enters, his capture weapon wrapped around his yellow sleeping bag, with it slung on his back, which was squirming and moving around, like something was trapped inside, making muffled yells. Morning class. Aizawa starts, but the bag gives him a particularly hard kick in the back. Do that again and I will lock you in a room with Nizu and he's been wanting a talk with you about your brain. There's a muffled response, but no more kicking, allowing Aizawa to address the kids. Well, as you can tell, we have a new addition to the class. He says, dropping the sleeping bag on the floor, earning an indignant noise from the sack, the contents squirming and moving around, until a familiar green-haired head pops out, duct tape covering his mouth. Pulling it off, Deku gasps, before turning and glaring at Aizawa. I told you, I require long walks at night. We asked you to behave yourself, and I said more or less. It's not my fault that fakes popped out of nowhere, looking for a fight. Deku says, extricating himself from the bag, turning to the class. So I was bored sitting in the dorms. I decided to go for a little walk in the moonlight, settled in an abandoned building, and was minding my own business. Bullshit. I wasis. Tell them exactly what happened while you were minding your own business. So I'm just chillin' in there like a baller, when these schmucks just kick down the door. One yells, "Get on your knees." So I responded with, "I'm not your mother last night," which they took offense to. They started attacking me, and you know how that song and dance goes. And I beat all but one of them. That one was funny. His name was Archangel, flight, wings, and mild self-healing. Think he was a new guy trying to make a name for himself. You have been chosen to reveal my existence to the world. You will witness what happens here today, and you will tell of it later. That was clearly from a movie, so I called him out on it. Oh my. Brilliant speech. And unoriginal. That's totally from Boondock Saints. He tried to pass it off and attack me, but after a few hits, and he would not shut up. It is your corrupt acclaim. It is your evil that will be sought by me with every breath. He just kept quoting the movie and I just had to call him out on it. Boondock Saints. Seriously, you must watch that movie religiously. Get it? This is where it gets funny. What happened to the last one? Pussed out like a bitch. Charged at me, yelling, and all I did was move to the side and he smashed hard into the wall, knocked himself out. All I did was tie them up after in a fun position. Hitoshi looks around at the others. They were either scared, amazed, or stifling laughs. Deku was going to be in their class. Ever since the sports fest, he couldn't stop thinking about Deku's lips on his neck. Glancing over at Shoto, Hitoshi can see the boy rubbing his lips. Aizawa sighs. Moving on. Deku will be in our class from now on. Now, on to the next announcement. But why? A few asked. Because if the USJ is anything to go by, UA is being targeted. And with what I saw at the sports fest, you will need help and real-life experience, not playing hero in some classroom. I was just going to go over that. Aizawa said. The sports festival was a way for pros to see what you can do. They have sent in requests to many of you, but those that do not have any will still be interning with heroes, from an approved list. Deku will be working with me. Now, you will be going out to do hero work, so you will need code names. Which is where I come in, says Midnight coming into the room. I will be helping you with making hero names. Here is the tally of requests for people in the class. Remember, even if you do not have any, everyone will be interning with a hero. Aizawa put up names with numbers next to them. Surprisingly, Shoto and Hitoshi got the most, about 1060, with Bakugo and Mina following close behind. Aizawa passed out stacks and pages to each student. Theirs are the agencies that requested you, as well as the approved agencies to intern with. Now Midnight will help with the names. Well, then if you don't need me, I'ma go back and have a bowl of my favorite cereal, Franken. Deku couldn't finish as Ida had charged across the room, propelled by his quirk, and kicked him in the side of the head, or would have if Deku hadn't put an arm up to defend himself, but only a few like Hitoshi saw that. He was still thrown into the wall by the force of the jet-propelled kick, cucking up dirt and dust from the wall. The class and adults were stunned by the sudden attack, until Deku stood up, brushing dust from his street clothing. You done goofed. How in the name of justice did you do that? Ida demanded, scowling at the shorter boy. Fuck you, that's how. Deku replied, why even attack me? I'm not the one that hurt your brother. But you know that villain that did. Stain knows you and respects you well enough not to kill people from your list, according to my brother. As far as I'm concerned, you're just as bad as he is. Deku charges at Ida, dodging kicks and sweeping his legs out from under him, and putting a pair of scissors to his neck. I don't know what you're on about. I'm just doing my job. Taking out fakes and villains and leprechauns. I've never seen one, but do you think if I beat it up enough, it'll puke up Lucky Charms? Enough, Aizawa yells, using his capture weapon to pull Deku away and to his side. Now stay there and behave. But I'm bored. You only need to keep your mouth shut. Can we get McDonald's? Only if you behave, Aizawa says before climbing into his sleeping bag, next to Deku and going to sleep. Okay. Midnight says, drawing the attention back to her. Now that that's done, let's move on to names. Things moved on quite smoothly after that. Hitoshi glanced over to Deku every now and then. He would grimace every now and then like he could have come up with a better name, but he keeps his mouth shut. After the names are finished, the kids head off to lunch and Aizawa carries a cheering Deku on his back. So what do you guys think about Deku being in the class? Uraraka asked. It will certainly be interesting, Yaoyorozu said. Revelry in the dark, Tokoyami said in his usual cryptic way. I think he's funny, a bit much but funny, Siro said. All I know is Hitoshi couldn't keep his eyes off him, Kaminari said chuckling. Neither could Shoto, Tsu said. After Endeavor's arrest, the class had started calling him by his first name. The pair blushed slightly. You okay, Ida? Mina asked. Was that stuff true, your brother getting attacked by Stain? And him respecting Deku? Yes, my brother found and confronted Stain, but was beaten. According to him, Stain consulted a list given to him by Deku, listing the names of true heroes. That is the reason Stain spared Tensei. How well do those two know each other? Uraraka and a few others wondered. Please tell us you're not planning some stupid act of vigilantism, Jiro said flatly, to which Ida said nothing. Ida, please just leave it to the pros. They questioned Deku, maybe they know new things about him. Do you really trust him? He could be in league with him or the villains from the USJ, or have his own secret agenda, Ida growled. Besides, if Deku could go around and take down villains and fake heroes, why can't I take down a serial killer? This ended the conversation, but a few pairs of eyes kept watching the class rep as they ate lunch. Somewhere else in UA, a pair sits in an office, pulling food from a McDonald's takeout bag, when the shorter of the two speaks up. Still think he won't go after Stain? The hobo sitting across from him sighs. Fine, we will start patrolling Hosu when internships start. Shota sighs as he sits on the roof of a building, waiting and watching around. After a few minutes, he hears some footsteps. You're late. A Deku is never late, nor is he early. He arrives precisely when he means to. Comes the annoying response. The kid comes to sit next to him, wearing the same thing he wore during the final fight, only instead of a hat, he wore a hood. I've called Hawks in as backup. He will be flying around Hosu, just in case. Fine, but did you really have to have Mike water your plants? Shota asked. Yes, it is needed thrice daily, and I warned him not to talk to them, because once they get started, They will not stop, especially Jim. Which one's Jim? Jim's the fish shoes. Come on, son. Shota sighs. Fine, whatever, just follow me and do everything I say. I promise to follow you to the letter. As long as the letter isn't Q, or any other vowel for that matter. Let's just go. We should be careful, it's past 2 a.m., and nothing good happens after 2 a.m. Let's just. Shota starts. But suddenly there is an explosion a ways off, fires springing up close together, screams and sounds of fighting can be heard coming from the direction. Great, just what we need. Deku, you go look for Ida and Stain, I'll go deal with this. I need you to give me permission to fight. I'm giving you permission to fight whatever you have to, just make sure you and Ida make it out. Bitch, don't tell me what to do. The brat says before running off. Shota grumbles to himself, hoping everything turns out okay as he goes to investigate the fires and screams. Tenya felt like an idiot as he lay there, paralyzed. He had been going to follow Manuel to investigate and help an explosion, when he decided to go searching for Stain, against Deku's, Aizawa's and Manuel's, even Tensei's insistence not to engage him. He should have listened. Now he lays on the ground, unable to move. Just like the hero next to him. Looking back at the last few minutes, Tenya remembers looking around the back alleyways, away from the sounds of screams and fighting, when he hears singing. The closer he got, the clearer the song got. Man, bring me a dream. Make him the cutest that I've ever seen. Give him 2 lips like roses and clover. Then tell him that his lonesome nights are over. Tenya follows the singing till he finds Stain about to kill a hero. Seeing Stain, Tenya saw his brother in the hospital, bloody, bandages all over his body. Tenya idolized his brother, much like other kids worship All Might. To Tenya, Tensei was what a hero should be, and to see him so broken and injured, put the teen in a rage. If he had been in his right mind, he might have listened to the counsel of the adults. But every time he thought of his brother, hooked up to tubes with bandages covering about 75% of him, Tenya can only see red. So when he saw the man responsible for putting his hero there, he charged straight at him. Without turning around, Stain swiped a sword behind him, taking off Tenya's helmet and making him fall backward on his butt. You're just a child, leave? Came the gravely growl of the villain, holding the hero in place, looking down at Tenya. Wait, you seem familiar. Didn't I fight you earlier? No, monster, that was my brother, a great hero, one that you savagely defeated and left bleeding in an alleyway. And I am here to bring you in and pay you back for what you did to him. Stain stands there, releasing the hero, who falls like a sack of potatoes. And what about him? Stain asks, gesturing to the immobile form. A real hero would be more concerned with rescuing him than taking down a villain. Shut up. You know nothing about being a hero, except what Deku shows you. You say Deku? Satin asked, looking at Tenya closer. After a minute he groans, son of a face. Why the F*** does all this happen to me? Explosions in the distance distorting several of his words. Silence, fiend, I will take you to justice, he says, charging at Stain again, who instinctively lashes out with one of his blades, cutting Tenya's exposed cheek, drawing blood. Stain then kicked the armored teen hard in the chest, throwing him back. As Tenya tries to stand, he licks some of the blood from the blade. As soon as the liquid touched the villain's tongue, all of Tenya's muscles stopped working, forcing him to fall on the alleyway floor. Tenya tries to move, even a figure, but is unable to. This leads him to where he is now, watching as the masked villain stands above him. Your brother was a hero. I gave him the choice to walk away. I wasn't looking for a target or a fight. He didn't take it, even when he was losing. But you only cared about petty revenge. Oh, you and the other fakes can dress it up however you want. Call it justice, all it serving peace, but what you're after is revenge, not a very hero-like. And it might get me on his bad side, but eliminating another fake will be worth. Stain's monologue was cut short due to whistling that was slowly coming closer. It sounded strangely like All-Star. After a few minutes, a figure appeared at the end of the alleyway. Tenya couldn't see who it was from his position, but he could see Stain's reaction, as fear flashed on his face for an instant before a weird grin appeared on his face. Deku. Hey, Stainy. What are you doing? Oh, just walking around. Walking around? Walking around. Thwarting my plans? Thwarting your plans? Are you? Yes. I told you what would happen if you tried to go after one of these kids, for any reason. And by my last count, we were at 259 to 225, with 6 wins in a row for me, and I'm ready to make it an even number. Okay, first just want to say, this isn't my fault, he came after me. Stain says watching Izuku, who simply bandaged up the hero up. Oh, I know, hormonal privileged teen throwing a fit, Izuku says, getting up, and starts making his way to Stain. And don't even get me started on heroes going around thinking they're entitled to take you down to make a name for themselves. As he starts talking again, but the hero tries to interrupt them. I'm right, he. Shut up, Stain and Izuku say at the same time. I don't get screen time after this anyways, he mumbles. This isn't like our other usual fighting arena. I like to think of it as more intimate. Well, I'm not intimidated either, Izuku said, chuckling. As he keeps Stain talking, he works his phone behind his back, sending his location to those on his contacts, Aizawa and Shoto. Anyway, I'm going to kill this fake, you can have the kid. Stain says, yesy. I would let you if I could. But I'm not getting a read on him, so I can't? Do I get a say in this? The hero asked. You've not involved in this anymore, hero? I think I'm pretty involved. Anyways, Deku, why are you trying to stop me? We do the same thing, we've been through the same pain and ridicule. True, but when I go out and beat up people, I make a difference. When you do it, you're branded a villain and a killer. There is a slight pause, with just the explosions and distant fighting in the background. Gonna need a sensu after that one. The hero muttered. Anyway, if you're here to stop me, you're going to have to take me in, or take me down. That's the plan, Izuku says, stepping closer. From Tenya's position on the ground, he had a front-row view of what happened, even though he was unable to see much of it clearly. Once Deku moved closer to Stain, there is a flash of steel and a clang of metal on metal. Deku was holding his arm up. It was encased in metal, like a gauntlet, like what he wore during the final fight in the festival. He had blocked one of Stain's blades. He and his brother are able to catch moving at accelerated speeds. They have too, given their quirk. Even so, he was unable to follow or even see their movements. Glad to see you've improved since that last time we fought? Stain chuckled. Yeah, and if I had a watch, I'd be looking at my wrist really condescendingly right now. Stain smirks before he disappears in flashes of steel, thanks to the street lights and the fire in the distance. All Tenya could hear and see are Stain's swords hitting Deku's armored arms, and something that he may be mistaken, though it sounds like Chickadee China the Chinese chicken, before Deku did a simple sidekick, throwing Stain into a wall, who just bounces back and lashes out at Deku again, who in turn blocks and throws back some of his own, singing patty cake, finishing it off with one last uppercut, sending Stain flat on the ground. Holy shit, did he just beat? The hero says just as Stain jumps up like nothing. Did you seriously forget who we are talking about? Tenya asked. I just have hope, okay? Is that so wrong? That fact you still have any hope left for your life, in this series, is your most admirable quality. Thanks, kid. Native, for the love of God, don't thank him, Deku calls out. I believe it's about time we got serious, don't you? Stain asked. 1 second the two are standing in front of each other, the next they are up in the air, with the only times Ida being able to see them was when they clashed, the metal creating sparks and flashes of light. After a few minutes, the two lands, Stain standing over Deku, who was laying on the ground, and seems more interested in the cuts in his coat than the serial killer standing over him. Just then pink and yellow streaks of lightning flashes past Ida, and kicks Stain away from Deku. Mina lives. And standing there was Mina, yellow lighting coming off of her. Never saw Sports Fest, who dat? Stain said, getting up. Oh hey Mina, how's it going? I'm okay, I just kicked a serial killer. And like that, you've already contributed more than Tenya there. You mind getting them out of here? Deku asked, getting up and dusting himself off. But what about? She wasn't able to finish as Tenya got tired of them arguing. You two need to get out of here, this is my fight. Oh shut up. If this is your fight, then stand up. Deku says to him. There is a short indignant break before he continues. Then be a good angst teenager and lather and take it. Deku then charges back at Stain, the two jumping off the walls of the alley. As the two are fighting, Mina goes to help the Tenya and the hero. You shouldn't be here, this is my fight, he is mine. Tenya groaned, still trying to move. That's not how this works, you're my friend, and everyone has been worried about you since we heard about your brother, and it seems Deku cares in his own way. As the two talk, Deku receives a cut just above his left eye, the kind that bleeds a lot. Deku stumbles back and tries to stop the bleeding, but some splashed on the wall, where Stain licks, forcing Deku to fall to the floor. Mina, stop talking and get those two away. Or don't let him lick your blood, his quirk is blood-type based. Mina gets in a battle stance, and yellow lightning envelopes her again as she charges at Stain, who's covered in bruises, but still grinning maniacally swinging his swords, but every time one gets close, Mina uses her acid to melt it. This goes on for a few more minutes until she too gets cut. Stain throws a knife that nicks her leg. Rolling to dodges a kick, Stain picks up the blade and licks up the blood on it, paralyzing Mina. It seems you would be a true hero. I can see why Deku is working with your kids. But this one does not act like a hero, caring more about petty vengeance and personal grudges than others' lives. Like the other fakes in this world, he must be cleansed, for the betterment of. Stain stops talking as a faint voice could be heard, slowly coming closer. After a minute the words become clearer. Mine, 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 mine. Does anyone else hear? Mina is cut off as a wave of fire nearly fills the alleyway, forcing Stain back again. Standing at the entrance stands Shoto, who moves to stand in front of Deku. Mine. Hey, Deku says, smiling or trying to with his muscles paralyzed. Stain charges at Shoto, his grin becoming more manic as he swings his blades wildly. Shoto uses his ice side to push Stain back, using his fire to push him further. Stop this, stop. This is my fight, none of you should have to fight. Tenya whined, tears in his eyes. His classmates, and someone who he respected but went against the law, were getting hurt because he was stupid, he got them into this mess. I can't watch any of you get hurt because of me. Thinking back to his last conversation with his brother. They talked about Deku. What do you think of the vigilante Deku? The one that has been going around kidnapping and torturing people and heroes? Tenya had asked. Well, his methods may be questionable, but the effects of what he's doing are clear. While it's true he is breaking the law and hurting people, there are some people out there that get away with things too easily. But there are worse ways to do things for the same effect. Take Stain, he kills heroes, some that are later found to be bad. But Deku hasn't killed anyone, no matter their crime. He makes sure they get punished by the law, as well as showing others out there that this is someone to hold them accountable for their actions. It may not be a good job, but if someone has to do it, I'm glad it's someone like Deku. Tenya is shocked out of his thoughts as Shoto groans, pinned to the wall by knives, unable to use his quirk, afraid of hurting Deku and the hero next to him as Stain licks up some blood from his cheek. But after he does so, he's immediately sent up into the air and backward. No. See, I don't really care for many people, but Canadian flag here is cute, and therefore, off limits, so now I'm going to break you. Like a Kit Kat bar. Deku then charges at Stain, who isn't able to protect himself as Deku launches a barrage of attacks, kicking and punching with armored limbs as he easily dodges the villain's attacks. Deku was moving so fast, the onlookers were barely able to see Stain get hit. As the relentless attack continues, the pair are steadily going higher and higher, Deku using the walls of the alleyway to slowly reach the roofs. Once he does, he delivers one final devastating kick to Stain's side that shoots the villain down onto the hard floor, just to Deku fall right onto him, Deku's steel-heeled boot slamming hard into Stain's stomach. Deku gets up, Stain doesn't. Deku then walks over to a stunned Shoto. Now what are you? He asks the taller boy, grabbing the front of his costume, pulling the two-colored-haired boy's face, inches from his own. Why yours? Shoto stammers out. And don't you forget it, Deku says, pulling the blades out. Luckily they only caught the costume instead of his shoulders. Now you should be fine, Type O is the weakest to his quirk, so help Alien Queen, Sonic, and the hero out, I'll tie up Stain and drag him out. Shoto does as he's told, helping Mina, who's is still unable to walk. Tenya helps him halfway through, Stain's quirk wearing off. Just as Deku is dragging an unconscious and bound Stain out to the street, a short, angry man, followed by heroes, appears across the street. What the hell happened? Eraserhead said there was a call for help here. Is that Deku? Is that Stain? In all the commotion, no one notices a bleeding winged creature swooping down until it snitches Deku up. Everyone stands stunted, watching as a strange bat, with its brain exposed, starts flying away with the Deku clamped in its talons. The only one that moves is the bound villain, who cuts himself free with a hidden knife, jumps up and licks at some blood that landed on one of the hero's cheeks, paralyzing the creature as Stain leaps into the air, freeing Deku from its clutches, stabbing the blade into its brain, and using it as a cushion for the fall. Then, standing in front of a half-dozen heroes, he proclaims, "Everything I do is to create a stronger society. The streets will run red with the blood of the hypocrites, the fakes. The only one allowed to kill me." Everyone present, besides Deku, stands frozen, overwhelmed by Stain's presence and his will. Deku is worthy. He sees the truth, he sees what others cannot. Deku cuts him off, but sending a booted kick to his head. "Oh, just shut up, you Voldemort wannabe," Deku says, standing over the newly unconscious villain. The heroes stand frozen for a few more minutes before moving in, tying Stain up, and calling ambulances for the kids and the injured hero. After the doctors and nurses finished patching him and the others up, Shoto sat on his bed, going over what happened. None of them suffered any major injuries, just some scratches and cuts. Shoto was interning at the Endeavor Agency. Well, technically after the arrest, it was renamed the Firestorm Agency, as most of the heroes there had fire quirks and he needed practice, but he was still having trouble. "Focus, Shoto, I told you before, you have to clear my mind of all other thoughts." "Yeah, primo advice. Might as well ask me to herd cats. Tell me, what thoughts are clouding your mind?" Shoto was visualizing Izuku naked, on the beach, on a towel. "Hey Shoto, could you put this lotion on my back and or butt?" Hero stuff." Then last night, they were patrolling Hosu. The plan being that catching the hero killer would help bring the agency's reputation back up. While patrolling, Shoto got a message, just a location, from Deku. He told Burning, the leader of the agency after Endeavor was arrested, and Hero he was interning under, where he would be, and to send reinforcements there when she could. Deku didn't send any snide little, cute, line with the info, meaning he could be in danger. No one hurts him, not without getting frozen then burned, then frozen again. Shaking to clear his head, Shoto looks over at Izuku, who is wearing his overcoat and a shirt that says, "I did nothing wrong." Turning, Shoto notices Ida looking as down as he did when they got into the ambulance, probably still kicking himself for getting them all involved in that mess. Last, Shoto checked up on Mina, who was just lying in bed. She seemed okay after what happened. After a few more minutes the door opens again. This time, a dog-head man comes in, followed by Eraserhead, Burnin, and two other heroes Shoto didn't recognize. "Greetings, I am Kenji Tsuragami, Hosu Chief of Police. Though one of you already knows that." The dog looks over at Izuku. "Hey Ken, how are the ears? Still hanging low, wobbling to and fro? Can you tie them in a knot or a bow?" the teen asks, smirking. The chief sighs, scratching at his nose before continuing. "Stain suffered from multiple broken bones, lacerations, internal bleeding, and burns. 3 of you should have been taught that it is against the law to use your quirks unlicensed. You 3 also did not have authority from your supervising heroes to engage Stain. Deku, for a change, got permission to do so by Eraserhead. Even though I really didn't need to, no quirk use, there is no law for quirkless fighting. Correct. But you 3 went against the law and took matters into our own hands." Shoto looks around, the adults looking stone-faced, or angry, Ida still not looking up, Mani looking close to tears, and Izuku just looked bored. "So what? Are you going to arrest us for doing the right thing?" Shoto asked. "No, there are enough injuries and the heroes on the scene did see Stain tied up by Deku, so we could attest it to him. You 3 will not receive any punishment for using their quirks unlawfully, nor will you receive any accommodations for helping bring him down. Not like we did much anyway, Mina muttered. Deku seemed to have the whole thing handled without us. We just got in the way. Now don't say that, alien queen, Deku says, getting up and walking over. You did take on a serial killer one-on-one and survived. Not many can say that. Thanks, Deku, Mina said, smiling. If there are no complaints about the plan, I would first like to thank you for your work in taking down Stain. Second, your instructors would like a word with you. With that, the dog left the room and the instructors went to their respective students. Izuku was close enough for Shoto to hear. You really need to stop going on walks? And you need to get some goddamn DSL in here, it's boring. Look, all I'm going to say is that you did good and that you need to stay here for at least a day to rest up. But I'm not that injured, just my clothes, and can easily fix or replace those. You will stay here. I have a lot of paperwork I need to take care of and a faculty meeting, and I don't need you interrupting it. So I want you to stay here. At least all of them are gone. I get the distinct impression you're embarrassed of me. Brat. I'm gonna go with new. This important, and way too early for you to be making another scene. I don't have to take this. I'm going for a walk. No, you don't. Oh, what are you going to do? Grab that guy who can stop me? What was his name? Michael Mack doesn't exist. What do you want? What? What do I need to give you to make sure you stay here tonight? I'm gonna need some new gear. And get some for Shoto. Bitches love new gear. Not that you're a bitch, candy cane, but you are mine. Shoto blushes again, remembering how close their faces were a few hours ago. He ended up nearly setting his bed on fire, but thanks to Eraserhead, they were safe. Well, now I see what got you so distracted with during training, Burnin says, smirking. Shut, he says, looking away, glancing at the other two. Ida was getting a talking to from Manuel, and Mina seemed to be in a quiet conversation with her short instructor. After a few more minutes, the adults left, leaving the teens alone. It's quiet for a bit as they started to relax and get ready for bed. When Ida says, I just want to say again, thank Tenya, you try to thank me again, I will plow the nearest male just to shut you up. Shoto's bed was next to his while Mina was across from Izuku and Tenya was across from Shoto, meaning Shoto was the closest one to him. Oh. Coolies. Should we be worried about the League of Villains? Minus. Deku shrugs. Probly. With that, he turned off the room light, and one by one they went to sleep. The next day, as none of them had any real injuries, they were returned to their respective instructors. Eraser had Izuku watched while he did patrol. The news played a lot about Stain and Deku. There was a tidbit about the Nomus, but the majority of the story was about Stain's backstory and his philosophy. There was also that bit at the end where Stain makes his proclamation to the heroes, including when he said Deku was a worthy hero, as well as Deku knocking him out. Now all anyone could talk about on the internet was Deku. Some claiming that they were right about him being a hero, all along with others still holding that he's a villain because he knew Stain. Soon Deku got tired and sent out a post, I came out here to have a good time, and I'm honestly feeling attacked right now. After posting that, the site blew up, with comments and questions. But I investigated myself, and found I did nothing wrong. Confident he has sown enough chaos, as more and more people started to reply to his posts, and the message boards go into fights and arguments. When Erasure got back, Izuku had a plan on how to mess with Bald Might, and after explaining it to Aizawa, the adult smiled, taking out a phone, starting to send texts. A few days later, when internships ended, Yagi pants as he deflates, collapsing into his office chair. The other teachers look over at him. Something wrong, Yagi? Cementos asked him. I don't know. The skeleton said, taking a drink of his bottle. I've just gotten a lot of heroes calling for my help the last few days, and these are heroes that I've seen being able to do their job well, even with their limitations due to their non-physical quirks. The last couple of days, I've been going around and helping them from anything between purse snatchers to random villains any of them could have stopped. I'm not sure what's going on. Yagi closes his eyes as he lays back into his chair and wasn't able to see all the other teachers look over to a yellow sleeping bag on the couch. In the class, everyone was talking about their internships until Izuku come in. Everyone went quiet before exploding, rushing him with questions. Did you really take out Stain by yourself? Dude, even Stain calls you a true hero. Did you know all that stuff about him before? All right, that's enough, Aizawa said as he comes in. Everyone in your seats. Now, you're all probably curious about what happened. But you can ask later. Right now, we have something to talk about, like the end-of-term exam and the training camp after. The exam will consist of written and practical, like the entrance exam. Oh, and before any of you start getting ideas, anyone that fails the exam will not be going to the camp. Most of the class descends into chatter and screams. Aizawa, not wanting to deal with this, goes into his sleeping bag, while Izuku thinks back at the conversation he had with Nizu and Aizawa, saying that he would be part of the practical. At lunch, everyone was trying to figure out what they would be doing. The consensus was robots like in the entrance exam. At the time of the practical exam, 1A was surprised to see 1B there as well as the teachers. Now, you may be wondering why all of you are here. It's because us teachers believe that you should be prepared to be randomly paired with someone you do not know, as like your first exercise with All Might. Half of you all will go first, then the other half. You will be in pairs, fighting one of us, or your special instructor. Aizawa said as Izuku jumps out of a window above the teachers and lands on Cementas's head. Your team member and opponents have already been decided. He goes on to list off the teams and the teacher for the team. To some of the students' surprise, Shoto was paired with Monoma from 1B, with their opponent being Deku. As the teams were bussed over to their respective areas, they started to discuss plans, quirks. But not Shoto and Monoma, who sat in silence all the way to the fake city. Just because you're Class A, don't think you can boss me around. I'm the one that's going to take Deku down and show the teachers what 1B can do. Didn't he basically bitch slap you and your team like it was nothing? Yes, but that was when we were unprepared. I am ready now, and he will know the name Nito Monoma. Really? 'Cause kind of seemed like you peaked. And you know what that means? What? It's all downhill from here, said a voice in an alleyway next to them. Like Yamcha. Though you might not know who that is, just know, it's a bit disappointing. The two jumped back ready, but whoever was there was gone now, just some laughter fading off into the distance, after the flash of a dark green end of a coat. Remember, you have 30 minutes to either get through the exit or capture your opponent. The PA system said. Monoma and Shoto continued their way, everything quiet. That was until they heard something in one of the alleyways. Trying to scare us, vigilante? Monoma calls out as he just charges. Well, it's monomer time. He charges right into a trash can lid. It's never going to be a thing, he says before Deku delivers a hard kick right between his legs, making the teen shriek as he gets thrown back to Shoto, who catches him, the blonde slumping into his partner's arms. He's all tuckered out, Deku says coming out of the alleyway, decked out in the armored uniform he had on during the last round of the fights. Now this exam is mainly for him, to see if he can work with people, even with people he doesn't like. Seems he failed. But we also have to fight, so. Deku started walking over to Shoto, who simply put the unconscious boy over his shoulder and started running away, Deku walking, following. After a few minutes, Monoma wakes up. You can put me down now. Are you ready to start working as a team now? Shut up and let me go, Monoma said, pushing himself off, using his quirk to copy Shoto's quirk, taking a few minutes to get used to it, his temperature acclimated. As he does so, Deku comes running at them. Shoto uses his ice to keep Deku away. Well, better keep your eyes open, partner, Shoto says to Monoma, moving to engage Deku. That's it, killing you both, Monoma said, unleashing a wave of flames at the two. Deku kicked Shoto hard in the chest, sending him flying into a building. Deku circles around and again kicking Monoma hard in between his legs. Monoma lets out a squeaky shriek, collapsing on his hands and knees on the ground, so Deku delivers another hard kick to his chin, sending him falling back next to Shoto. He keeps kicking me in the dick. But why does he keep kicking me in the dick? Monoma groans, struggling to breathe and stand. I think I might have a way to beat him, Shoto said. If you say work as a team, I swear, I will kick you in the dick. I guess we can work as a team. Monoma growls. Together. Never, he's mine. We only have 15 minutes left. But Monoma wasn't listening anymore if he ever was, as he sends ice and fire at Deku, who simply uses his coat, which was apparently fireproof, and punching and kicking through glaciers. This continues till Monoma stops, starting to shiver and sweat, unable to correctly regulate his temperature. Once the attacks stop, Deku just grabs Monoma's head and repeatedly brings it down on his armored knees for several minutes, before throwing the teen back into a wall. And as Monoma seems to be passing out, Deku walks over, leans in close. "Hello, this thing on? You are now thinking of what I did to you, while you were unconscious. Have fun with that." "Well, now that that's out of the way," Deku says, moving over to Shoto. "Now we can fight unabated." "My brother says that makes you grow hair on your eyeballs," Shoto says. "Beating that ass is the hardest thing I ever enjoy," Deku says, charging at Shoto, who simply puts up an ice wall between them before dashing off to the exit, using his ice to move faster. Deku sighs and charges after him, not really looking to stop him, jumping over ice walls. But of course, Shoto passes through the gate, passing the exam. About an hour later, in the recovery tent, students come in as Monoma wakes up, wearing a diaper. Recovery Girl had used her quirk as much as she could to heal his privates, but he will still need to wear the absorbent clothing for a few days, to a week. "Dang man," Tetsu said, coming in from his fight with Kendo against Cementos. "What happened to you?" Monoma was trying to say something, but Kaminari, who was sitting next to him, breaks in. "He fell down some stairs." So Monoma kept up with that line, "I fell down some stairs." But Shoto, who was sitting nearby, with Deku's arms on his shoulders, says, "No you didn't. Shut up before I throw you down a flight." After all the exams were done and the students healed up, as much as they could, the teachers called an announcement. "All the results are in, and sad to say several of you failed your exams." The students that did look down, dejected. But those that did fail, need the training camp the most, so get ready, we leave in a few days. Hitoshi's exam was after Shoto's, so he was able to watch his fight with Deku. Ever since Deku first came on the news, Hitoshi's been intrigued. This someone who didn't care about status or the status quo, where heroes had to have a certain kind of quirk, or act or be a certain way. He also stood up for those that were quirkless or weak/villainous quirk. Then after the USJ incident, he couldn't get Deku off of his mind. Then there was the sports festival. When he saw him and Shoto kissing, he couldn't help a pang of something rise up in his chest. Then when he was caught by Deku, even when he is concussed and getting drugged. But it all came to a head when he showed up in class. The second that fluffy green hair, he was smitten. "That hair looks so fluffy and soft, I just want to run my hand through it," was the first thing he thought when he saw it. These feelings put Deku's interactions with Shoto into a different light, and just thinking about it makes him feel weird, bad weird. Though there might be a problem. After he joined 1A, one of the students, Kaminari, started coming on to him, flirting and holding hands. After Deku joined them, sitting in class with them, Hitoshi was sure he had seen them like that, and shivers ran down his spine every time. Hitoshi liked Kaminari, but only as a friend. After the exams, he confronted Shoto alone in the nurse's tent. "What's your relation with Deku?" Hitoshi asked. "What do you mean?" "He's someone who helped me deal with the shit that was my father." Shoto said. "That's not what I meant. Every interaction you have with him, he gets all lovey-dovey, and he even kissed you during the sports festival. What I want to know is how you two know each other." Hitoshi sees Shoto visibly blushed. "Well, he is cute. And fluffy, and alpha, probably not relationship material. Anyways, he just helped with dealing with my father." "Shoto, you're drooling, get a hold of yourself," Hitoshi says. "And he seems very interested in you." "He's right," comes a voice from a tarp in one of the corners. "Been flirting with you both since the USJ incident, but thanks for noticing." The two went over and took off the tarp and saw Deku standing in a cage, hands on the bars. In the cage are a food and water bowl, bed, and some books. "How long have you been in there?" Shoto asked. "Since the end of our exam," Deku said. "So you're interested in both of us?" Hitoshi asked. "Can you do that? You really want to know?" he asked. Hitoshi nods, leaning closer. Deku grabs the collar of his shirt, pulling him closer, pressing their lips together for a second before pushing him away. "Then get me out of here." The two boys outside the cage stand there shocked before they walked away. Once outside, They look at each other. I think that means we are both dating him? Shoto questioned. Hitoshi shrugs/nods. Later, Izuku is lying in bed when Copycat comes in, on orders from Eraser no doubt, and unlocked the cage. Izuku could tell that the boy was shaking, probably scared of him after the exam. Izuku had seen and heard someone flirting with his sleepy purple cat, and he did not like it, and it was about time he marked his territory. Once outside, Izuku stretches. Where's Sparkplug? Kaminari, from 1A? Oh, he's probably with that Shinso guy from his class in their classroom. You know he's been basically hanging off of him since he joined 1, flirting, holding hands, basically joined at the hip. Monoma said very fast, all in the same breath. My god, I cannot shut up when I am scared. Interesting, I'm gonna go pay him a, what do you call it? Visit. Beating, that's it. Gonna go pay him a beating. He says, running off. As he does so, he faintly hears Monoma say, oh crap baskets. Huh, they say that too. A few days later both classes are standing outside, waiting for everyone to arrive so that they can board the buses. Izuku is in between Shoto and Hitoshi, who have just accepted their new role as co-boyfriends, especially after they saw Deku burst into the classroom and basically pull a Michael Jackson on Kaminari and dangle him out of a window, promising pain if he tried to flirt with Hitoshi. Once Kaminari promised, Izuku let him up, walked up to Hitoshi and Shoto, pulling both tall boys down to his level, and in view of about half the class, he kisses both boys full on the lips, one after the other, then just struts out. Once everyone arrives, the classes enter different buses. The ride was uneventful, except with the class whispering, chuckling, and taking pics of Izuku who was basically stretched out, lying across the two boys' laps, like a cat, napping. Once they arrive at a stop, everyone gets out to a sandy overlook of a tree-filled valley and mountainside, with only one black car along with their bus. Everyone starts looking around, wondering why they stopped, and looking for a bathroom. One of the doors to the car open, and a kid in the same red sneaker shoes Izuku had and a red cap with 2 horns sticking out the front, came out, and came running at him smiling and yelling, Onaizen, and slams into Izuku, wrapping his arms around his waist, who chuckles, kneeling down hugging him back. Hey Kota. Give me some fin. Izuku says backing away and holding out his hand, which Kota slaps. Noggin. Izuku bends down, Kota knocks his head against his, and they both back up and say, dude? So are you behaving for your aunt? He asked standing up. Yep, mom and dad say I have to if I wanted to come and see you. They say tying. Kota says as 2 ladies in cat costumes come out of the car, one with long blonde hair, the other with short dark red hair. They also said to not disturb him when he's busy. The red-haired woman says chuckling, looking at Izuku. Hey kid, how are you? I'm good, Mandalay. Is Kota behaving himself? He's a lot like you. She sighs. I'm feeling very attacked right now. Kota pouts. You know we do it because we love you, Izuku said. What am I? Used kitty litter? Pixie Bob asked playfully. Don't be like that, we love you too. Mandalay said. Same thing as last time? Izuku asked, the rest of the class standing behind him, confused about what they just saw. Yep, the target time is lunch, and those that don't make it to the camp don't get any. Pixie Bob said, pointing to a spot in the distance. 500 yen says we don't make it there till dinner, Izuku said, moving to the guardrail by the cliff. Oh come on, give us some credit, it looks like a walk in the park, well Woods. Firefly said. I'll be sure to put that on your headstone. He said it was a walk in the park. Izuku said, chuckling just as Pixie Bob uses her quirk to send the class over the cliff, Izuku using a piece of wood that was sitting on the side to ride the new wave of dirt down the cliff while the other kids were screaming down. Once everyone was on the ground, they grouped up around Izuku, asking what happened, what they were doing. Look, if you had thought about it, stopping there meant something was up. Now we have until lunch to get to the camp that is that way, he said, pointing ahead of them. Seems simple enough, Mobile Charger said, just as one of Pixie Bob's dirt creatures came to life in front of them, looking like a giant rock wolf. Do you ever get tired of being wrong? Boner Boy said as Izuku, Shoto, Sonic, and Mina all rush in and with their quirks, destroyed the creature, Izuku using an expandable staff from his belt. Okay, everyone circle up, none physical quirks in the middle with the sonar and sensor quirks, Everyone else, circle up, no telling where or when these guys will pop up, so we need Octodaddy and headphones to keep a look and ear out for them as we move to the camp, Izuku calls. The others quickly follow his instructions. They eventually arrive at the camp, a lot earlier than the canon, but still later than lunch. When they arrive, the adults see Izuku dragging Sparkler behind him, Frenchie over Sato's shoulder, puking, and Frogger's sister, leaning on Flouter for support, and supporting her. Everyone else looked okay if a little bruised. Izuku only had dirty clothes. Well, you got here faster than we actually expected, Pixie Bob said. The whole lunchtime was when we or Deku would have finished, which is why we need to wait for the other class to eat. The other students, except for Thomas the Tank Engine, Shoto and Pinky looked surprised at him, thinking no way anyone besides pro heroes could make it through that in just a few hours. Izuku shrugs, and drops the Energizer Bunny on the ground and takes Shoto's and Shinso's hands and leads them to the tables, the others either collapsing where they stood or sat down at the tables. Once Class B arrived, practically dead, food was brought out. During this, Aizawa made an announcement. After you finish eating, we will be having a fight, one class at a time, you lot versus Deku. Seriously? Is that fair to have a whole class against one person, even if it's Deku? Red asked. You will be fighting quirkless. There is always a chance that there will be occasions where you will be forced to fight without your quirk, or maybe you run into someone like me, someone that can take away your quirk. Do we have to though? Photocopier said. I mean, Class A has had people beamed by him twice already, whereas we only lost once? Just for that, Control C. You guys are going first, since you reminded me that you need an extra hard beating. Izuku said, some the members of Class B glaring over at the blonde, who had broken out in a cold sweat. After dinner, Pixie Bob made a ring with walls about chest height. Izuku walks in wearing regular gym clothes, like the others. Class B shuffles in, most looking worried, others confused, having not heard or believed that one person can take them all out. Aizawa calls the match to start, and Izuku charges at Duplicate Man, kicking him hard in the chest, and grabbing his color, gonna plant me a dumbass tree. He says, smashing the blonde into the ground, headfirst planting him partially halfway in the ground. Izuku stands back, looking at the other students. Now all of you should duck. Kaos, I'm about to turn left and I don't want to smack you with my dick. Deku starts taking out the members of Class B, quickly taking out Fish Breath by throwing him into Goo Goo and kicking the two out of the ring. Snake Girl got kicked in the head, right into Praying Mantis, both falling to the floor, unconscious. First to react was Hank McCoy's love child, charging in, just like last time. Izuku charges in to meet him, dropping into a slide in the dirt, and lifting a leg and nailing him hard in the dangly bits in between his legs. The stylist's Nightmare lets out a long drawn-out whine, the other remaining boys in the glass taking in a sympathetic hiss of air as the boy falls to the ground. Enough, comes a voice as someone comes from the huddled mass of students. Once the person comes out, Izuku is shocked for a second before bursting out laughing. Tetsu had dyed his hair yellow. Once he's able to breathe, you're different. What happened? What the hell are you? Can't you tell Deku? Tetsu said, styling his hair so it starts up. I am the hope of the Omniverse. I am the light bulb in the darkness. I am the bacon in the fridge for all living things that cry out in hunger. I am the Alpha and the Omega. I am the terror that flaps in the night. I am Son Goku and I am a super. Izuku just throws a heavy rock at the boy's head, nailing him in the face, knocking him out mid-speech. Trust me, that would have gotten old real quick. After, he started to mop up the rest quite easily, started taking apart the rest of the class, until he got the vine. You know, I did read the good book, once. My favorite verse was Ezekiel 25 verse 17. The path of the righteous man is beset on all sides by the iniquities of the selfish and the tyranny of evil men. Blessed is he who, in the name of charity and goodwill, shepherds the weak through the valley of the darkness, for he is truly his brother's keeper and the finder of lost children. And I will strike down upon thee with great vengeance and furious anger those who attempt to poison and destroy my brothers. And you will know I am the Lord when I lay my vengeance upon you. Once he finished, he pulls out a smaller version of the Bible from underneath his clothes. In the name of the Deku, the gay, and the blasphemy, Deku said, smacking her with the book at each break before kicking her hard in the gut, out of the ring, finishing off the first class, most unconscious with some staggering around outside the ring. You could have gone a little easier on them, Mandalay said, sounding a bit bored. That was easy, I didn't break any bones, and there are only a few concussions, Izuku said. Now send in the next class. PB nods as she opens up the arena. The members of Class B that were still standing helped carry their classmates out as Class A enter, looking really worried. Hold on, Izuku said, going over to Koda, who looked about ready to pee himself. Hey sweetie, you don't have to do this if you don't want to. Hey, how is this fair? Toaded asked. Because unlike what you and most people think, simply having a quirk doesn't make you some brave, amazing warrior. Some people respond better to kindness than brute force and aggression. Izuku growls at her, leading Koda outside, PB closing up the ring when Izuku re-enters. Once back inside, he quickly kicks power outlet into one-half tails. The unconscious electrical discharge yellow light lets off, paralyzes Kung Fu fighting for a short time, allowing him to concentrate on the other, less physically trained members. Well, once that wasn't cowering in the corner, like a certain Frenchie that was embracing his nation's stereotype of surrendering. The first to approach him was the Pebble, Kakashi's love child, and Popo Lips. The three tried to surround him, but all Izuku had to do was jump into the air and spin kick all three of them, putting them down but not out, finishing off Sugar Daddy with a falling kick to the head, knocking him out. He was going to start beating on Shark Teeth, but he instinctively used his quirk, resulting in getting called out by Aizawa. The others soon recovered from the shock and all rushed him, well, except for Boom Boom Boy, Shoto, and Shinso. PB took pity and pulled in the closet out. Izuku jumped into the air and started tap dancing / jumping on their heads, kicking them hard, making his way to the just recovering gay guy, grabbing him by his tail, and swinging him around, knocking him hard into his classmates, until the octopus grabs him, but by that time, the bat was unconscious. Okay, time to get serious, Izuku said, pulling out an extendable staff from his pocket. Hey, physical combat only, Horny said. This is physical, I'm still not using a quirk, Izuku said. The first rule of fighting a villain, always expect them to cheat. He says, pulling a flashbang, tossing it into the group and turning away, covering his ears as it goes off. Turning back around, he sees the students stunned and confused, some groaning or yelling on the floor. He chuckles and started singing, Good Morning, as he knocked or tossed the stunned students out until it was just him, Shoto, Shinso, and Sparkler. Well, this has been fun, boys, but I think it's time to finish this, he says, hissing his staff, tripping the wild porcupine, kneeling down next to him, and holding his staff like a pool cue. Right nut, left lung, he says as he pushed it right on target. The blonde let out a squeal before passing out. Izuku stands up and faces his two boyfriends. Shoto, I think we have to do the thing, Shinso said, backing up a bit as Izuku advances on the pair. What? But we agreed to only do it in case of emergencies. Shoto hissed, red coming to his face. We are about to get beat by our vigilante boyfriend, and not in a fun way. I think this counts as an emergency. Fine, Shoto sighs, quickly grabbing Shinso's face, turning it towards him and panting a hard, deep kiss on the purple-haired boy's lips. The whole clearing goes quiet, everyone awake, gaping at the two boys that are currently sucking face, in the middle of the ring. Izuku stands there, mouth open, staring, unable to handle the sight of the cute, hot and cool, dual-colored haired boy playing tousle hockey with the mysterious, aloof, handsome stacked puppeteer. He was too engrossed watching that he didn't notice the two getting closer before it was too late. They were on top of him, while Shoto was having Izuku in a chokehold while Shinso held his arms. Harder, Daddy, Izuku gasps out, causing everyone to cringe and gasp, giving him time enough to break free and toss the two out of the ring. And that is why you lot need to focus on your natural physical abilities, Aizawa said, to the remaining students, as well as strengthening your quirks. Starting bright and early, we will be training your quirks, pushing them hard. No go wash up and get to bed. Once everyone had recovered, at least wake up. They headed to the baths, boys and girls separated. Before he got to the boys' changing room, Izuku was pulled aside by air buds and floaters. Deku, we have a question? Round Face muttered. Sorry ladies, I'm spoken for, Izuku said smirking. That's not it. Punk Rock said. We already have our eyes on other people, it's getting their attention that we need help on. And since you're dating one of the most oblivious boys in class as a boyfriend, we thought you could help. Izuku sighs. Let me guess, you got Jugs Mackenzie, he says pointing to Joan Jett. And you are after Leapfrog? He says to Floater. That's right. Pink Cheeks said. We've tried, flirting and dropping hints, but nothing seems to be working. We don't want just to ask them and mess up any relationship we have with them. Look, I've only been around for a few weeks, but even I can tell they do like you. Also half your class is stunted when it comes to emotional stuff. So the best way is to go big or go home. And I have an idea. After a few minutes, in the girls' baths, everything is normal. When Jiro taps on Sue's shoulder, I think Yura like you. She says pointing to Uraraka, with only her eyes visible over the water, as they had planned with Deku. Okay look, this will only work once, so only one of you can pull this off, the other will have to use the emotional shock to confess to their love interest. You two should discuss who's doing what, Deku said before heading into the boys' changing room. Uraraka slowly walked up to Tsu, her bare body slowly rising from the water, cheeks crimson with nerves and determination as her hips sway, flicking water as she walked. The baths were silent as the girls watched. Once she reached Tsu, Uraraka bends down, cupping Tsu's chin in one hand, tilting her head up. Ribbit, she says before pressing her lips to the frog's open mouth. The room remains silent for a few more minutes before bursting into cheers and congrats. In the commotion, Jiro walks over to Momo. Momo, I wanted to tell you, I like you. Momo gasps, blushing, looking over at Uraraka and True, who, after recovering from the shot, was returning the kiss, then back at Jiro, motioning to the pair, Jiro nodding. Momo smiles, blushing more as she nods, hugging Jiro, pressing their wet, humid bodies together. The next day, before the sun was out, all the students were gathered outside. Okay, today starts your training. You will be training and pushing your quirks to the brink, over and over. But you will also spend time building up your bodies and cooperation between classes, doing manual labor, and building without quirks. Aizawa groaned, pulling out lists of groups. He then separated students, some to work on their quirks, others building treehouses, or gathering wood. Kirishima, Izuku, Shinso, and Tetsu were grouped together to build a treehouse. They were making good time and doing great, having set up the walls, roof, and windows. Shinso and Kirishima were up in the house, when Shinso went to get stuff for the finishing touches, and tried the door, but found that it had only been outlined. Kirishima, what? He said looking up. Where's the door hole? Right there. See, I drew it with a magic marker. He says pointing the outline out. You were supposed to cut it out with a power saw. I'm gonna. Really? Then go get the power saw. But I will. He says, trying the door, resulting in slamming hard into the wood. He takes a few seconds to look frantically around the cramped enclosed space. I see the problem now. Oh, do you? Shinso shouted. He then stuck his head out one of the few windows. Izuku, who was on the ground, holding the power saw, smirking up at the treehouse, tilted his head. Looking for something? The two stuck in the tree took turns calling for Izuku, who just set the saw down and walked off to help Tetsu collect wood for other groups, coming back later with the power saw. Later at night, Izuku helps the other kids make dinner. Koda sits next to him talking with him, catching up with him. After, Koda dragged Izuku off to his secret, spotted cave in the mountains. They hung out for a bit before returning back to camp for the night. And things continued like this for a few days. Izuku received a text from Dabi, telling him that the League was going to attack the camp. Izuku in turn warned Eraser. I have a contact inside the League, and he says they are going to attack the camp. Are you sure? Only a few people among the staff even knew where we were going to have it. He asked quietly, so none of the training students could hear. I'm sure, but he doesn't say when. Just be ready. Thanks for letting me know. Now go back to training, he said. The next night the instructors had the classes do a test of courage. To walk in pairs along a path with the other class scares them. Halfway through, Izuku got another text. just as blue flames could be seen from the clearing he and the other students were in with a few of the pussycats. At the same time, a thick fog started spreading out in another part of the forest. Izuku charged in, looking for Shoto and Sparky Boom Boy who had been paired together. On the way, he felt something coming at him and dove to the side. Looking up he saw a purple jiggling ball. Well, look what the vigilante dragged in, Deku. A short, odd-looking figure emerged from the shadows. When I saw and heard he were going to be hanging around UA, I couldn't believe it, especially not when I heard these guys were looking for information about UA. Minoru Mineta stood there, a few of his sticky balls in his hands, a creepy bandana mask and straitjacket-like costume on. Now I will finally have my revenge for what you did to me. More like I get another chance to pull a Michael Jackson spank and dangle your ass over a balcony, Izuku says smirking. The Grapist starts throwing his balls at Deku who dodges them, running circles around the kid, throwing paper airplanes which make paper cuts on Ball Boy as he stands there, just throwing his balls, which lands on trees or the ground a ways off. After a few minutes the throwing battle ends, Deku smirking at the boy who has multiple cuts all over his face, arms and legs, as well as blood coming from his head from when he pulled too many balls from his head. Deku smiles as he pulled out a strange gun from his belt. The hell is that? Purple Trash said, wiping some blood from his eyes. Concentrated lemon juice gun, Izuku smirks, watching the color drain from his toy's face just like his blood. He then chased after Mineta, spraying him with the juice, causing the cuts and injuries to sting painfully until the Grape Boy was on the ground in the fetal position. Izuku then threw a bungee cord so that it draped over a strong tree branch. He then ties one end around a large rock and the other around the Trash Boy's leg. Once it was in place, Izuku releases it so that the cord retracts, so that Ball Boy shoots up, the tree branch finding its mark between the kid's legs. The brat lets out a gasping scream before going limp, all the while the bungee repeatedly bounces up and down, continuously hitting square in the same spot. Izuku then makes his way over to Koda's secret spot in the cliffs. But he hears some noise in the woods nearby. Investigating, he sees a Nomu with power tools for limbs, attacking Ragdoll, who was already bleeding from a blow to her head. Hey Rags, seems you need help? Wouldn't say no, Deku. She calls, jumping from tree to tree, dodging the Nomu's attacks. Izuku pulls out his guns and starts firing paralyzing bullets into the creature. Even with its faster regeneration, it still froze and fell back. Ragdoll leans against a tree, panting, whipping sweat and blood out of her eyes. As she does, Melon's Yaoyorozu comes out of the shadows, looking injured in another villain attack, probably from the gas, leaning on a student from Class 1B. Sorry, got to go check on Koda, but I'll help them when I'm done. Melon Girl, put a tracking device on that thing, and go with Ragdoll and join the others back at camp. He says, heading to the cliffs, Koda's secret hideout, as the kids do as he says. As he approached, he recognizes the crazed voice of Muscular. You seem to have forgotten who took that eye of yours. Izuku chuckles as he gets up behind the villain. Deku, I heard you sold out and joined the heroes. Steroid spokesman said, turning and facing Izuku. At least I'm not taking orders from a walking scab. He said chuckled. As Koda used his quirk to soak the meathead. Just for that, I'm going to take my time with you, the walking blister said. And for you, he said we can have some fun with you before we deliver you to him. But before that, Izuku said, pulling out his shock batons, Torture 101, all might knock off. What happens to a wet human body when hooked up to a car battery? He asks as he leaps at the villain, sending 200,000 volts through Muscular, causing the muscled man to convulse and spasm for several minutes. After, when Izuku backed up, the giant toppled and convulsed for a few minutes before going limp, as he lost control of his bowls, leaving a stench in the air. Nice work, Koda, Izuku said, walking over to the kid, who smiled up at him. Come on, let's get you to your aunt and the others. But first got to tweet this. Izuku said, pulling out his phone. In his office, Nexu was thinking back to his conversation with Deku a few days before the classes were sent to the camp. So you're going to send kids to an undisclosed location with just a few heroes, no backup plan, no cops, just be free willy. Yes, it would be safer if fewer people knew where you kids are, Nizu said. In case a villain group tries anything? You mean like the League will be swooping in? That would be stupid, Nizu said in a monotone, thick might face palming next to him. He checks on a notification he got from his Twitter account. Opening it, he sees a tweet from the Green Gremlin, with a profile pic of Deku in his vigilante costume. It's the League. Hashtag call edit, hashtag swooping is bad, hashtag fuckmothering vigilant. What is it? Yagi asked. It's the damn League of Villains, said Future Belt as he faced off against the Pussycats and students in the clearing. We are here to carry on Stain's vision. But the League has nothing to do with Stain, Ida said in a confused. What? But they attacked at the same time. That's because lipstick allergy is a pouty man-child and didn't want to be outdone by someone better, Izuku said going up to the group, having given coda to Eraser and a little message. Now, I hear you all are here for me. So let's just get this shit over with. Hey Magna, how you doing girl? Hey Deku, sorry about this, but the boss I don't know if it's to join or what. The butch villain said, the heroes and students watching, everyone but Class 1A shocked. Fine, let's go and deal with this, Izuku said, before looking over to everyone. I'll be back soon, just got to smack a bitch, though he might just break apart when I touch him. I just got to change a bit. Are you sure about this Deku? Mandalay asked, knowing he can take care of himself but was still worried. Yeah, I can take care of the sandpaper reject. Get everyone back inside. Izuku walks with Magna and Iguana Boy to the gathering spot. On the way, Izuku grabs a bag from behind some trees he had prepared in case something like this had happened. Once in the gathering space, he sees Dabi and a costumed villain named Twice, and Toga, who immediately glomped him. Hello Deku-kun, she says before Izuku throws her off. Seems we at least completed one of our goals. Says a somewhat sophisticated tone. Izuku looks and sees a masked magician want be. Can I change first? Izuku asked. Fine, come one brat, Dabi said, grabbing Izuku's collar and dragging him behind some trees. You sure about this kid? Aw, is Patches worried about me? Izuku said, changing when Dabi turns around but is still close enough to listen and talk to him, without the others hearing. Maybe what chicken wings would do to me if crusty boy man kills you. Please, that bitch couldn't kill me if I was blind and deaf. He says, coming out from behind Dabi, who takes one look at Izuku and starts facepalming. The others following his example or start laughing. Are you ready? Came Kurojire's voice as a portal opens. The Nomu is already back in storage. Yeah, let's get this over with, Dabi says, dragging Izuku with him through the portal, the others following. Once through, Izuku sat down in the chair, allowing Dabi to tie him down, but not without leaving them loose and a cheeky, harder daddy. Keep that up and I will actually do it. Dabi hissed quietly as Facepalm came into the room. So you finally arrived. What the hell are you wearing? It's my ass-kicking outfit, bitch, Izuku said. As he is wearing a costume that looks like a costume store's All Might costume, but the color scheme was red and black in the shape of a middle finger, and instead of the V hair, it's a pink top hat instead of his usual fedora. Back at the camp, Shota looks at the note that Deku gave him when he gave him coda. Konnichiwa, Eraser. I figured the League would come and get me, or maybe some of the other kids. This is to let you know where they are, an underground bar in Yokohama City, Kamino Ward. Melons. I mean Momo, if there was a Nomu, should have put a tracking device on it, and you or the other heroes can find their storage area and take them down, or at least make sure Kurojire can't bring them in when you attack. Just watch your asses, the one behind the League is extremely powerful and very dangerous. If anyone sees a dandy-looking dick in a suit, run and call bitch might, he might stand a chance. Shota sighs, the brat may be crazy and stubborn, but he's clever, and his heart is in the right place. If things had been different, he could have been a great hero. After finishing read it, he heads back to the students, who were either with the paramedics getting checked over, or huddled together talking quietly. The ambulances, police, and firefighters had shown up a little after Deku had gone with the villains. Aizawa-sensei, what's going to happen now? Ida asked. He and the others in the clearing were unhurt, all the pussycats were accounted for, some of the students that were affected by the gas or were rushed to the hospital, so he was on the way to go check on them. All Might and Tsukachi were going to meet you to talk with Yaoyorozu about the tracker. You guys are going to get checked out and go home or the hospital. Let the heroes take care of this. He says getting in a cop car. A few hours later, Shinso lays in his hospital bed, sharing a room with Shoto and Bakugo. The other two having fought a cannibal villain, and only got out when a Shindo led a dark shadow-crazed Tokoyami into attacking the villain. How do you think Deku is doing with the villains? He asked as the other two wouldn't ask. Izuku can take care of himself, he's a lot stronger than anyone realizes, Bakugo said, with a sad look in his eyes. I know, but he's with who knows how many villains, Shoto said. He might seem like a crazy idiot, but you forget he survived out there 3 years on his own, and he was able to take down trained pros and villains by himself. If he went with them on his own, he has a plan. You're right, but I still think we should go after him, Shinso said. I was walking around earlier and overheard that Deku had Yaoyorozu make a tracer and stick it to the Nomu. It might lead us to him. He would do the same for us if we were taken by the villains. I agree with Shinso, but what about the heroes? What about the tracker? We would need Yaoyorozu to agree to help us, and she won't. She will, Shinso said confidently. Even if I have to make her. And oh, I will join you guy, only if she agrees on her own, Bakugo said. What's this? Some students going to break the rules, came from the door. The three turned and saw Mina and Ida standing there. I'm in, Deku may be a bit rough, but he gave himself over to the villains for us, we need to help. Are you all serious? We can't, we should listen to Mr. Aizawa and leave this to the heroes, besides, Bakugo is right, Deku can take care of himself. Ida shouted at them. I just stood there, Shinso growled. I could have stopped the villains in an instant, but I just stood there and watched as Deku walked away with them, for us. Yeah, and he saved us from staying, Mina said, we at least owe him that much. Ida took a few minutes to think about it. Very well, but we are only there to quietly get him out if he needs it, no quirk use, and if the heroes look to have things handled or if you guys try to use your quirks, I will drag you straight back here. They all agreed and Mina and Ida went off to talk to Yaoyorozu, agreeing to meet up later outside the hospital before heading out. Will you just join? Bad Touch Man growls for the 100th time within the last couple hours. The other members have given up and are doing their own things. Stabsy McGee playing five-finger fillet with crocodile skin, Magic Hands playing with a deck of cards, Dobby had left to hang out with his boyfriend no doubt, and Misty was finding replacement gases that the man-child has been breaking. Will you ever get tired of asking? Izuku asked, reclining into the chair, still feigning being tied up. I mean I can understand your hate boner for dummy thick but that's a hard no for me. What are you even saying? Why even let yourself be brought here then? Maybe it's because I so enjoy seeing that tick you have when you're upset, I want to see if I can get you to draw blood. Shiggs was in fact and has been, in between breaking glasses, cups and door handles, much to the displeasure of the vampire and Smokey, scratching feverishly at his neck. Just then there's a knock at the door. Hello, this is Kamino Pizza. Well, that's my cue, Izuku says slipping out of the chair just as the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man blows in through the wall facing the street. It's about time you get your oversized cake here, but All for One isn't here, he's at the other facility. So just head over there, and leave the rest to the other heroes. The blonde is taken back for a few minutes before what Izuku said clicks, and jets off. Treebeard's love child has the league in a BDSM session just as Nomus start to pop out of some black goop. And with that, I guess I'm going to meet the big guy, Izuku says as black goop starts to spew out of the members of the league and from Izuku's mouth. A minute later, the lot of them were gone. What the hell? What is happening? How did that happen? These questions and more were going through Shinso's mind as he, Shoto, Bakugo, Ida, Mina, and Yaoyorozu sat huddled behind some fallen pieces of wall. A few minutes ago, the heroes had blown open the storage building and had secured the Nomus. The next minute, a huge explosion blew all 20 or so heroes including MT Lady in her hero form, as well as at least an entire block away. Now a finely dressed man with a strange helmet stands/floats in the middle of the wreckage. My pupil just had to bring in that brat and attempt to get him to join, when he knows the kid won't join. But he has to learn. The figure says in a deep male voice, holding up an unconscious best jeanist. Several black goopy spots appear in front of him. A few minutes later, the League and Deku appear gasping and coughing from the masses. Once he got his breathing under control, the group of scared kids could hear him speak. "Hey, you're that musketeer guy, right? I am all for one, yes. Great, I'm a Deku in the schnoz, or I would if you had one." Still the same insolent brat as usual. "All for one," said, dropping the hero. "What can I say, but I got one for your monkey." Deku says, pointing at Shigaraki, "2 for your clothes, 3 for your family, who are all dead, and a 4 for your nose." He says, ticking them off on his hand, finishing as All Might comes rocketing in, slamming hard into All for One. All Might and that masked man, All for One, were going at it to basically a standstill. Though, to the ones hiding behind the broken wall, it seems the villain was just playing with All Might. Looking over at the other group, the students watch as the other members of the league show up, surrounding Izuku. The area was deserted enough that they could hear what was going on. "Oh look, it's Shiggy, you want a biscuit, boy? You want a biscuit?" Deku said, smirking. "Do you think I'm a—" Shigaraki asked incredulously. "Have a biscuit?" Deku interrupted, throwing a dog biscuit, hitting Shigaraki in the face. There is a few minutes of silence before Deku charged into the group, pulling out knives that must have been dipped in the same quirk suppressant stuff he used in the USJ, because he threw a few of his knives, either cutting or hitting the villains called Magna, Shigaraki, and twice in their arm, and were unable to use their quirks. There was a huge nose from the other side of the war zone. The students looked just in time to see All Might get buried under a building, and the head villain floating his way over to Deku. "You can't be serious," the masked villain said to Deku, who simply made his way over to the floating man. "With your skill level, you're no villain. You're no vigilante, and you're certainly no hero. You know what? Fuck skill level. Fuck heroes. Fuck you." Deku says, pulling something out from one of his pockets. "Shin. Jaikon. Po." Suddenly an explosion blew up the ground below All for One. "Upstart childish brat" came from the new hole. Deku continued to repeat "Ho," and each time he did, there was another explosion right where the villain was. A few weeks back, Izuku was taking one of his moonlit walks, this time in Kamino Ward. He was with Dabi, who pointed out the warehouse where they were storing the Nomus. Deku got an idea and started ticking around the warehouse singing "Dig, dig, dig a tunnel quick before the hyena come," as he digs deep and wide under the streets, planting a few surprises for later. "Should we leave?" Yaoyorozu asked over the explosions. Deku seems to have this under control. "Yeah, but even if he can handle the big guy, the other villains are still dangerous without their quirks, not to mention he missed one of them," Mina said. "Let's just wait a few minutes and see," while coming up with a plan to get him out of there, Ida suggested. Back on the battlefield, the explosions had stopped. Now Deku was standing next to a giant hole stretching miles deep. "Are you done? Because I'm coming out, and if you're not, I swear to God, if you do that again, I will be so freaking nettled." All for One had just cleared the top of the hole, his suit all dirt, dusty, and torn, when Deku set off another explosion right under him, making the villain fall into the new hole. Deku took this opportunity to pull something else out of his pockets, looks like a transmitter, and pushed the button. All for One came out of the new hole, his arms growing and morphing into something grotesque with bones sticking out. "Any last words, Izuku Midoriya?" "Wait, I wrote you a song," Deku said, Dabi walking up next to him with a busted ukulele. "It goes something like this." Dabi strums it hard a few times. "You're a bitch." Deku drops a smoke pellet, so that now he, Dabi, and the small group of villains behind them are enveloped by the cloud, just as something red and golden shoots down from the sky, just to come back out again, carrying Deku and Dabi, who proceeds to sing "Soaring Flying" as they shoot off into the distance. The smoke clears after a few seconds and everyone is stunned, silent, confused about what just happened. All this gave All Might the time to rest and get free of the rubble as he started attacking All for One. The students took this to mean that they should leave. They were able to watch as the warp villain's quirk was forcibly activated by All for One, though black tendrils, allowing Shigaraki, Toga, and the other villains to flee. Shoto and the others tried to follow the sound of singing from the sky and soon arrive at a small apartment building. From there, they just followed the dirty footsteps and bits of rubble and debris to an unlocked apartment. Going inside, they immediately see the number 4, at that time, Hero Hawk standing at the kitchen counter, taping it with both hands, chanting chicken nuggets over and over again. Walking further in, they see Deku in the kitchen, warming said chicken nuggets in an oven. "Hawks, if you don't calm your tits I will get Dobby in here to eat your ass," the green-haired boy said, not turning around until the food was done, now noticing the new guests. "It's about time you guys showed up. The fight should be just about over." The group saw that though it seemed Deku didn't have any trouble with the fight, he had bandages on his arms and face, as well as a limp when he walked. The phone to the house started ringing, so Deku came out from behind the counter, and the students had to blush and look away, especially the dual-haired boy and the purple-haired boy, both blushing deeper than the others as their classmate was wearing just a normal shirt that said shirt and boxers with little bunnies on it. Deku house where the days are hot and the gays are hotter. "Can you speak up? I'm not wearing any pants." "Where the hell are you, brat?" came Eraserhead's voice from the phone. "Hey Eraser, I can't talk right now. I have guests over so I'll see you later, okay?" Deku said as he hangs up the phone. "We should get you to a doctor to get you checked out?" Ida said, still red and looking at the ground. Fine, but let's watch the rest of the fight," Deku said, heading to the other room, the others following. "But All Might can beat that villain easily," Ida said. "Not so," Deku said softly. "You should watch. This will be a dramatic change in the world," Deku said as they enter. The students all gasp as they see someone sitting on the couch, his scared, burned body reclined back, pulling Hawks close. "Hey kids, glad to see you were able to get out of there," Dobby said, one arm around the pro hero as he ate his chicken nuggets. "Deku, what's he doing here?" Shoto asked, growling, getting in a battle stance. "Easy, Sho will explain later, but I will say that he's with me. He's been giving me info on the league's movements and plans," Deku said, sitting down on Dobby's other side. The small group looks at each other for a few minutes before sitting on the couch, the two boyfriends next to Deku, and the rest next to Hawks as Deku turns the TV on, turning it to the news, which shows live coverage of the fight in Kamino. All Might seemed to have shrunk. Half his body looked sunken, like a skeleton with the flesh still clinging to it, while the other half was still his normal beefed-up self. While the villain's mask had been smashed apart, his clothes were even more tattered and dirty than before. "What is wrong with him?" Ida asked him. Bakugo, Dobby, Hawks, Shoto, and Shinso all looked shocked. Only Deku and Mina didn't look at all surprised, but the latter did look worried and scared. "Just watch, this will be the end of All Might," Deku said solemnly. The color drained from the students' faces at that, turning back to the screen. They watch as All Might gets smaller and smaller, eventually his entire body looking like a shrunken skeletal man. Sunken eyes, hair lifeless and hanging, all thin and bony. "I did leave one last surprise. If Hawks set it up." The pro looked scandalized. "You doubt me?" he asked, handing Deku a remote with a green and a red button. The kid takes it, pressing the green button as cheers and screams exploded from the screen, cheering on their hero, begging him to fight. "When I set up those explosives, a few days before we left for camp, I asked Hawks to slowly and quietly evacuate the area, at the same time, put speakers connected to microphones in the city square, where that huge screen is, because I figured a lot of people would be watching from outside," Deku explained. They watched as All Might beefed partially, in one arm, power radiating off of it as the villain attacked, and All Might struck him, smashing All for One into the ground, creating a decent-sized, deep hole around them, as the force blew the smoke, ash and dust up around them. After a few minutes, the dust and smoke settle, and the cameras see All Might, muscled, hair in his usual V stand, fist raised in victory, standing over a seemingly unconscious villain. Sound of the crowd cheering All Might's name could be heard as police, disaster crews, and other heroes swarmed the scene, securing All for One, cleaning the rubble, looking for any civilians that might have been in the area. During all of this, All Might, now in his powered-down, skeletal form, wades through the people, before pointing directly into a camera. "It's your turn." While everyone else was talking about what just happened, Deku looked over at Mina, who was softly crying, because he understood at least partially what was going through her mind. All Might had used up the last of his reserves of One for All, and now it was up to Mina to be the next symbol of peace, as the next wielder of the quirk. "Okay, let's go." I need to get this leg looked at and a scolding from a hobo to look forward to, Deku said, getting up. The other kids follow him, along with Hawks. Wait, you haven't explained why Dabi is here, Shoto said. Oh right, this ain't my shit, Toya, deal with this? The duo-colored boy's mouth fell open in shock. Dabi just had a really expression, looking over at Deku. You're just gonna drop the bomb like that and leave it to me to clean up, you little gremlin? Dabi asked in a dun sort of tone, monotone, and exasperated at the same time. Yes, I'm not going to keep that kind of secret from someone I'm going to sleep with. Now, I'm going to the hospital. With that, Hawks picks him up and carries him out, followed by everyone else, leaving Dabi and Shoto in the house alone. It took a while, but eventually, Izuku was checked in, examined, and put into a room to just rest his twisted ankle and heal the multiple cuts and bruises he had. It was during this time that Eraserhead came in. I have finally figured out what you are. You're a gremlin that someone fed after midnight, and now you make everyone else's lives hell to feed your hunger for chaos. Ah, and it just took you almost 4 years to figure out. Well done, stray cat. And now your prize is that you get to deal with me for the rest of your life. Oh, but I also have a surprise for you, Eraserhead said, a seriously unnerving smile stretching the usual grim and gaunt face. Your mother is here. A few days after Bakugo told Aizawa and Nizu about Deku, Nizu had Inko and Mitsuki stop by UA for a talk. He didn't know what to expect, but a somber-faced blonde and a determined green-haired woman was not it. When Inko Midoriya walked into his office, accompanied by Mitsuki, Bakugo, and escorted by Aizawa, Nizu could tell she knew exactly what this was about and was bracing herself for anything. After a few minutes, the women sat across from Nizu's desk. As I said on the phone, there is something I need to discuss with the pair of you. Nizu started, but Mrs. Midoriya cut him. This is about Deku, isn't it? A statement, not a question. Yes, it is. Nizu said as he pulls out a tablet. He tapped on it a few times, before turning the screen to face the women. When classes started, Deku seemed to have found a way onto campus using a student's access card. He plays the video of Deku's monologue on the roof. When Izuku started talking, Mrs. Midoriya let out a shuddering sigh, as if she had been expecting this, but it was still a shock. Inko? Mrs. Bakugo asked her friend, placing a hand on the shorter woman's shoulder. I'm okay, Mitsuki. It's just, hearing his voice after all this time, it still sounds the same. She took a few minutes to gather herself, breathing deeply before looking back at Nizu. What would you like to know? Young Bakugo told us his take of events, but I would like to hear yours. I'm not sure what else we can add. Mrs. Midoriya. I would simply like your take of what has happened, Nizu says gently. Well, when Izuku and Katsuki were younger, they were basically joined at the hip. They went everywhere together, did everything together. They liked the same heroes, even planned on being each other's sidekicks when they became heroes. Inko says, voice becoming more choked as she told the story. But then Katsuki got his quirk? Mrs. Bakugo continued. Everyone of course started praising him for having such a flashy quirk, saying he will be the #1 hero with a quirk like that, or just how amazing it was. That's around the time when Katsuki started calling Izuku Deku. I tried to be hard on him, to try to knock some humility into him, but it never took. In fact, I think it just got worse. Especially after everyone found out Izuku was quirkless. Katsuki would bully, berate, and look down on everyone, thinking because of his quirk, it was his right to do so, but Izuku was his favorite target, and Izuku just kept following after him, standing up to him. That would just make Katsuki even angrier, since he, the future #1 hero, couldn't have a quirkless anybody stand up to him, thinking he was better. So, Mrs. Midoriya picked up as it seemed she had relaxed a bit. After a few years, we decided to try for drastic measures. Mitsuki saw the road Katsuki was walking and didn't like it, and I just wanted Izuku gain some confidence, some of Katsuki's backbone. So we looked and found someone who we thought could help. I know it's no excuse for what we did, but we were desperate. Izuku was coming home with more and more injuries. Katsuki was getting more arrogant by the day. Mrs. Midoriya took several deep breaths before continuing. After the transfer, we thought it had worked. Katsuki had stopped bullying others and actually started to apologize to them. Izuku seemed more confident, more self-assured. But then I started to notice some things. He would still come home with injuries but much fewer, and mostly around his knuckles and hands. Katsuki would try to talk with him, apologize. But Izuku wouldn't listen, kept brushing him off, saying things like, "Apologizing to myself seems a bit ridiculous, don't you think, Bakugo?" After about a week, I started getting calls from the principal, saying they believe Izuku's been in fights, or that he's been misbehaving. They never had any proof, only unconfirmed rumors and suspicions. But it got so bad that one day they called me in and suspended Izuku. That night, when I asked him why he's been acting like this, he started talking about accountability and about how heroes had been able to do whatever they wanted with no consequences. I thought it was just the change and he would level out soon. But the next day, he went missing. I asked around, filed a missing persons, but nothing came up. Then, a few days later, that news about Shimmer Wind showed up, the mention of green eyes. That, the crime they were accused of, plus Izuku's words before he disappeared. I didn't want to believe it, but... She then reached into her bag and started pulling out pieces of paper, news articles, magazine clippings, all about Deku. She hands the pages over to Nizu, all of them in order from when he first appeared, a nameless villain/vigilante, all the way up to what happened with Endeavor. Each looking worn down and faded, like they had been pulled out and looked over often, with old wet spots all over. Principal Nizu? Nizu looks up from looking at the pages to see Mrs. Midoriya holding back tears. Am I a bad mother? No, you are not, Mrs. Midoriya. Was what you did wrong? Yes, it was. But doing what you think is right for your child is never wrong. You know what these tell me? He asks, holding up the pages and clippings. These tell me that Izuku, your son, the kid that wanted to be a hero, is still in there. And I believe he wouldn't blame you for what happened. He might be upset, hurt, but he will not hold it against you. Mrs. Bakugo smiled kindly at Nizu as she puts her arms around a sobbing Mrs. Midoriya. Over the next few months, Nizu had kept Inko up with what's been happening with her son. When he told her Izuku was going to be at the sports festival, she wasn't expecting what she saw. Her loving, kind son, who wouldn't hurt anyone, tearing through kids with powerful quirks, with ease, while saying such disrespectful things. She watched as he separated and eliminated each of Katsuki's team, then again in the individual fights. In only 3 years, Izuku went from the scared little child to someone that seems to take such pleasure in fighting. He's alive and he's grown so strong. Without me, despite me, was what went through her mind as she watched her son's speech after the final round. Then a few weeks later, she receives a call from Nizu saying Izuku was kidnapped by the League of Villains. She had just gotten her son back, the closest he's been in years, and now he was gone again. She had started to freak out and hyperventilate when she got a call from Mitsuki to turn on the news. Once she did, she sees a war zone. Buildings basically turned to rubble, huge holes in the streets, fires, smoke everywhere, and standing in the middle of all that was Izuku in a strange costume. She watched as he stood up too and helped All Might defeat the faceless villain, before being flown off by a red blur. She called up Nizu, who gave her the number for Eraserhead, the pro that was watching Izuku. So after calling him, he picked her up and drove her to the hospital. As they parked, Inko started to worry again. Though he didn't seem that hurt, she didn't know why he would need to go to the hospital. He's fine, just a busted leg, the hero said as they made their way to the building. They were directed to Deku's room, where the hero asked her to wait outside while he went to check in on Izuku. Izuku sighs. He knew he would have to deal with this eventually, but he didn't think it would be this soon. Fine, let's get this over with, he said, laying on the hospital bed. Eraser nods and heads out, and his mom comes into the room. His mom just stares at him for a few minutes. Hey, been a while, Izuku asked, watching her. Izuku, you've grown so much, she says, but Izuku cuts her off. It's too boring here, let's go outside and talk, he says, standing up, the bandages and healing to his legs allowing him to walk, even if it wasn't finished mending. He leads the way out of the hospital, changing to street clothes, a regular t-shirt, baggy jeans, and a hoodie. If this is about the transfer, don't worry, I actually must thank you. If you and Ani hadn't done that, I probably would still be a useless, scared little crybaby. But now, I am one of the most feared and respected vigilantes out there, And you know what they say, it's better to be feared than loved if one can't be both. His mom was quiet for a while, but when they got closer to the fast food place, I do not product place unless paid to or I feel like it, she spoke up. How did you get so good? Where have you been staying? Are you eating well? Will you ever come home? Izuku sighed again before turning around to face her. Okay, look, I got trained by another vigilante a bit after I left the house. I'm staying at a nice secluded place. I'm fine and eating well. I won't be home for a while, he said, his mom looking heartbroken at that, making his own chilled heart crack a bit. But I could visit from time to time, chat and catch up, I guess. His mom let out a soft sob and hopeful smile, making him sigh again. I was never angry at you. Yeah, I might have felt hurt after the transfer, after realizing how you, my own mother, someone who was supposed to believe in me and help me, just gave up on me. I know, Izuku, and I'm sorry, his mom said sadly, looking at her feet. When the doctor diagnosed you as quirkless, I stopped believing in you. I listened to everyone else, that you needed a quirk to be a hero. But you've shown everyone that you don't need a special flashy quirk to be a hero. Izuku takes a few minutes to digest what she was saying before sighing. Like I said, I don't blame you, you only did what you thought you had to. He was going to say more, but he heard some commotion in the alleyway next to them. He rushes over, putting his hood up, and sees Eraserhead facing off against a masked man who had Shinso, covering his mouth with some kind of tape and a blade to his throat. If it isn't Deku, the villain says, smirking as Eraserhead stands there, not wanting to do anything to endanger Shinso. I'm in the middle of something more important than whatever this is, so if you just want to run along and bring back someone substantial, say. I don't know. All Might? Deku growls at that, but the villain continues. That'd be great. Izuku instantly whips out a gun from inside his sleeve and fires, putting a bullet in the villain's knee. Gee, what the hell? The villain yells, releasing Shinso as he falls backward, clutching his bleeding leg, allowing Eraserhead to use his capture weapon to secure him. You pushed the All Might button. You shouldn't have done that. Eraserhead said as he drags the screaming villain away. You okay? Izuku asked Shinso, who is on his but on the ground from being pulled back when the villain was shot. My hero. The purple-haired boy smirks. Does the hero get a kiss from his damsel in distress? Izuku asked playfully, leaning over closely to Shinso, who leans up and kisses Izuku for a few seconds before they both stood up, Shinso heading home and Izuku going to have a meal with his mother. Toshinori sighed as he collapses into his chair in his skeletal form in the teacher's office that he shared with Aizawa, Mike, Cementos, and a few others. Rough day, All Might? Mike asked. Hero after hero has asked for assistance. Heroes that I've worked with many times. They are good, even with their weak quirks. They've been calling in for help for almost everything from holdups, robberies, purse snatching to hostages and rescue. It's almost like they all kind of gave up or forgot what to do. The deflated hero groans as he tries to relax, closing his eyes and rubbing the back of his neck. While he wasn't looking, the other heroes in the room look over to Aizawa, who was absently sipping from a juice pouch while grading papers. After the sports festival, Aizawa had told the entire staff and texted every vigilante and weak, quirked hero he knew what All Might had said. To say that they weren't happy would be a gross understatement. Since then, Nizu has had All Might open doors, jars, and any other thing he can whenever he and the man were in the same area. Other heroes had also been calling the symbol of peace to help due to not having a proper quirk, or since All Might had a much more suited quirk. They all knew what was going on, but they never said anything because Aizawa and Mike told them what All Might had said to Deku during the sports festival, and many of them did not appreciate what All Might said about weak quirks, and they told all the heroes they knew that fit the description and have been making life rough for the hero. Well, maybe they are just seeing how hard it is being a hero with such a weak quirk, Mike said. But they didn't have any problems before now, and most of the problems were simple things that even police can handle. All Might said, groaning, getting up to get coffee. Just then Nizu came in riding on Midnight. All Might, glad you're here. There is a problem with the kitchens. It seems Lunch Rush is having difficulties with some of his machines. I was wondering if you can go help him. Nizu chirps happily. Toshinori just stood up when Cementos spoke up. Hold on a second, Yagi. Since you're up, there seems to be a disturbance in Gamma Gym. If you could check it out, it would be a great help. Toshinori nods, bulking up before heading out of the room. After helping move some equipment, passing by Vlad King and Power Loader on their way out of the cafeteria, he heads over to the gym where he finds an old friend leaning against the wall inside. Don't ask, I was told to come here too. Night Eyes said in a bored voice. Looking around, Toshinori notices a spike pit and a stone pillar with something under a tarp. Suddenly the lights in the gym went out, except for the one over the pillar. A figure shot out of it, masked, wearing a frilly pink princess dress. I already don't like where this is going, Sasaki said as he readjusted his glasses in his usual condescending manner. The figure then took off their mask to revile young Togata. A strong, fit, third-year student, said to be one of the strongest in all of UA, in a lacy pink princess dress, a long blonde wig with blue and pink highlights. I'm so tired of pretending. Where's my happy ending? The student's voice carries through the gym as he starts spinning and dancing around the now squirming tarp. I followed all the rules, I drew inside the lines. I never asked for anything that wasn't mine. Do you have any idea what's going on? Sasaki asked Toshinori in a soft whisper as they both watched him dancing around on the pillar of stone. No idea, but I do not like where this is headed, Toshinori whispered back. I waited patiently for my time. But when it finally came, he called her name. He said as he pulled the tarp off, reviling Mina, bound and gagged to a chair wearing quirk-suppressing cuffs. The adults below gasped and were about to charge up there when they found that they were cuffed to the wall. Looking around, they saw why Deku was smirking at them a few feet away. I should have known you had something to do with this mess, brat, Sasaki said, sighing, to which Deku just bowed as he climbed up the pillar and joined Togata. You know him? Toshinori asked Sasaki. Yes, he likes to leave presents in my patrol routes and agency front door, like a stray cat, Sasaki said as they heard Todoroki continue. And now I feel this overwhelming pain. It's in my veins, it's in my brain. My thoughts are running in a circle like a toy train. I'm kinda like a perfect picture with a broken frame, and I know exactly who to blame. At this, he tips the chair over the edge of the pillar, so Mina was dangling over the pit of spikes, held in place due to the bindings. The adults pulled again at their bindings but couldn't get free. I never thought of myself as mean. I always thought that I'd be the queen. Togata pulled Mina back into the center of the pillar as he continued to dance and sing. And there's no in-between, 'cause if I can't have that, then I will be the leader of the dark and the bad. Now there's a devil on my shoulder where the angels used to be, and he's calling me the queen. Togata, whatever this is about, we can talk about this, Sasaki called out to his pupil. There's no need to do something you'll regret. But Togata ignored him and continued. Being nice was my pastime, but I've been hurt for the last time and I won't ever let another person take advantage of me. The anger burns my skin, 3rd degree. Now my blood's boiling hotter than a fiery sea. There's nobody getting close to me. They're gonna bow to the evil queen. At this, Togata activated his quirk and the pink dress slid through him, just as Deku slid a dark lace silk thin, nearly see-through, dress in a dark purple skirt. Your nightmare's my dream. Just wait until they fall to my wicked schemes. I never thought of myself as mean. I always thought that I'd be the queen, and there's no in-between, 'cause if I can't have that, then I will be the leader of the dark and the bad. Now there's a devil on my shoulder where the angels used to be, and he's calling me the queen of mean. The queen of mean, calling me. The queen of mean, calling me. Deku joined in for the chorus, grabbing Mina's char and spinning it around. Is it me, or is he repeating himself now? Toshinori asked. I think I know what's going on here, but I'm not sure, Sasaki muttered. Something is pulling me, it's so magnetic. My body is moving, unsure where I'm headed. All of my senses have left me defenseless. This darkness around me is promising vengeance. The price that I'm willing to pay is expensive. Vengeance is never worth the price, Toshinori calls out. I'm struggling to decide whether you're speaking from experience or calling the kettle black, Sasaki said. There's nothing to lose when you're lonely and friendless, so my only interest is showing this princess that I am the queen and my reign will be endless, Togata said as he shoves Mina's chair closer to the edge of the pillar again, making it sway and rock back and forth. I want what I deserve. I want to rule the world. Sit back and watch them learn. It's finally my turn. If they want a villain for a queen, I'm gonna be the one they've never seen. I'll show them what it means. Now that I am that, I will be the ruler of the dark and the bad. 'Cause the devil's on my shoulder where the angels used to be, and he's calling me the queen of mean. Calling me, the queen of mean. Calling me. I want what I deserve. At the end, Togata gave Mina's chair one last kick that would have put it off the edge just as the light above them went out. The adults heard a muffled scream and then a sickening, squishy, impaling noise. And all the two yelled. A few seconds later, all the lights came back on in the gym, revealing a skewered watermelon, and all three teens standing in front of them holding hands and bowing like they just performed an amazing play. And what was all that about? Sasaki asked, raising an eyebrow. Blame the kid, it was his idea, Togoata said, putting his hands up in surrender. Though you have to admit, it was fun, Mina said, picking up a few pieces of skewered fruit into a bowl and offering it to the others. True, it was fun. And Nigeri offered to videotape the whole thing and send it to HeroTube, Togata said, waving to the rafters above them. Looking up, the adults was another student, Togata's friend Hado, using her quirk to float down in fits of laughter. You two should have seen your faces, sir and mister, she says, trying to contain her laughter as she typed a few things into her phone. Thank you all for participating in this installment of Fucked Up Queens. Or FUQ for short, Deku says before skipping off. Izuku sat tied up in the back of a truck, while several costumed people argued about what to do with him. The whole scene freezes, fogged over, except for Izuku, who turned towards us, wearing a deadpan expression. I know what you're thinking, how did all of this come about? Well, I got bored at the dorms and being under the same roof as Kanaiski was going to drive me crazy. So I told the walking burrito cat that I was going for a walk. He tried to stop me, emphasis on tried. So there I was walking the streets in the light of the full moon, clear air, when these bitches pulled me into an alleyway, surrounded by 20 hero asses who judgment says work as mercs and bounty hunters. I was able to take down most of them before a pansy ass used a paralyzing gas quirk to gas the rest of them along with me so that he and his team can tie me up and throw me in a van. Now 5 assholes are laughing about, with their boss, some decked-out Machine Gun Kelly cosplayer with so many gold chains, Mr. T would be jealous. The world fades back and resumes. The wannabe gangster was smirking at Izuku as he sat tied up. You're supposed to be some big-shot dangerous vigilante, but now look at you, all back of the bus. Wyolo, where are we taking this kid? The guy with the gas quirk asked from the driver's seat. Yeah, swag, the bounty doesn't say, just says it was made by UA staff, said another from the passenger seat. Guys, what did I say about using the old name? It's Midas touch now. The impersonator said. Wait, oh swag. Izuku said to himself, putting 2 and 2 together, since Judgment had called him by his civilian name. Your hashtag Wyolo Swag King? Izuku asked before bursting out laughing. I mean, you showed up for like 5 seconds just to get laughed at because almost no one got your reference and disappeared. YOLO sighed to himself. This is why you do not have a bunch of teens come up with hero names that will stay with them for years. Hey, it's your own fault. Those words died out in the early 21st century. I'm just going off other people's ideas that this takes place some 100 or so years in the future. Why not just call yourself Mr. T, or Bling Bling Boy, or BBB, because I can think another name with 3 Boliviano. My parents were historians, so I grew up on this kind of stuff. You know, before humanity nearly stupefied itself into extinction over all the stuff in the USA and COVID. Before Triple B could start going off on a tangent about what a mess the 21st century was, Izuku interrupts. Okay, so how do you want to do this? Because I'm in a mood and it's getting late. Do you want me to break out and beat you all unconscious? Or let me go and I find the person at UA who put that bounty on my head and beat them up? Like you could, that stuff is basically steel, and besides, I'd paralyze you if you tried anything, said the driver. You mean this stuff? Izuku asked, dropping the rope that he had been cutting with a hidden blade while keeping the others talking. And if you tried, you'd just be paralyzing your team. He finishes before leaping at BBB. From outside, passers-by would just see a normal van suddenly stop before watching it bounce and shake, loud but unintelligible shouting and grunts coming from inside. After a few minutes the shaking and yelling stopped, and by now there was a crowd just watching up, scared and confused, before the back door opens and a small person jumps out. "And now if you'll excuse me, I have a cat to punish," he says to the onlookers as he walks off to UA. In Nizu's office, "You think he got the message?" Nizu asked, sitting at his desk drinking tea. Oh, knowing him, he's already won his way. Aizawa started but was cut off. "Here," Isku said from the window, which was on the top floor of the 10-story building, and was locked. "See, you made 3 mistakes. 1. You made the job. 2. You made it open so anyone with an ego could take the job, knowing I'd get offended, and 3. He says as he sees Aizawa move to use his scarf, but Izuku quickly jumped from the window on top of Nizu's desk, grabbing onto Aizawa's wrist. "Too slow. Now that you have my attention, what do you want?" "Well, with all the villain attacks, we were planning to have the first years take the provisional licensing exam. We were hoping you would help train them," Nizu said. Izuku stared at Nizu for a few seconds before starting to laugh, like https://udape/8 daoyag 8 maku ?T=1. Starting soft, them started going crazy. This continues for several minutes before it dies down. "I will be able to do it my way, correct? As long as they don't die, then yes," Nizu said, nodding, having expected that reaction. "And I am not taking licensing exam. I have no intention of being a hero," Izuku said as he thinks he sees the 2 pros share a brief look. "We'll get to that when we get to it," Burrito Cat said. "Fine. But don't expect me to be gentle. I'm going to train them the same way I was." "Accepted. That is all we wanted to discuss with you. Both classes have already been informed of the plan," Nizu said. Izuku head back to the dorms that he shares with 1A. "I guess we will have to have a backup plan for that." "Yeah, he needs a license, especially with all the attention on him. Even still, a lot of people that think him as a villain." While this was going on, Ijiro sat in the common area thinking back what he had learned during the sports festival. Bakubro, someone he looked up to because he was always sure of himself and willing to help others, had bullied someone to the point they had become a vigilante, one that takes down heroes in the 10-10 charts like it was nothing. One that also seems to hate Bakubro, even though the blonde seems to feel extremely guilty about what he did. Ijiro wants to ask his friend about it, but it seemed like a touchy subject, especially after Bakubro's reaction to when Deku had been taken by the villains. But now that they were in the same building as Deku, he hoped that he would get a chance to ask him about him and Bakubro. The thought had barely entered his mind when the dorm front doors open and said boy came in. Ijiro looks around and sees that they are the only ones in the common area and the kitchens were empty, gets up and goes over to Deku. "Hey Deku, I was wondering if I can ask you something." The green-haired boy looks up at Ijiro and sighs slightly. "Well, you just did, but go ahead." "Well, I've been wondering, what's your and Bakubro's history?" Once he finished his question, Ijiro felt a shiver run up his spine as he sees Deku's expression darken, and calm eyes turn into an icy glare that would have put Aizawa's to shame. But he also noticed that Deku wasn't glaring at him, more through him, up the boy's stairs, and into Bakubro's room. "That is between me and Bakugo Katsuki. I suggest not butting in," he finishes before moving past Ijiro and up the stairs. Ijiro watches Deku walk away, before taking a relaxing breath. Whatever the problem was between those two, Deku was seriously angry about it, and he did not want to get caught in the middle of that. The following week, all Hero Corps students are instructed to meet at Gym Gamma. "Okay, you guys are all here for training for the provisional licensing exams," Erase Your Head said to the group, leading them inside. "But as Vlad is busy and I'm not in the mood to deal with you, crackhead, I will leave you in the capable hands of Deku." But Mina was cut off when the floor the classes were standing on began to rise. Looking around, they saw that the entire gym floor as rising in different levels, and saw Cementos in one corner of the room, most likely using his quirk. After a few minutes, the platforms leveled and the group found themselves on the tallest surface, just as a figure jumped his way to the top, jumping from platform to platform. After it reached the top, it moved next to Erase Your Head, turning out to be Deku. "Okay, that's my cue. Deku, you know what to do. Erasure says, jumping down and heading out of the gym. Yes, Nico. Deku says, and there is silence until the door closes behind Aizawa. Alright, you maggots, listen up. Deku about to teach you the pecking order. It goes you, the dirt, the worms inside of the dirt, my stool, Aizawa, and then Deku. Any questions? Yeah, Kirishima said before Deku quickly kicked him off of the platform onto another one further down. Luckily he had used his quirk so he wasn't hurt. Enjoy the climb back up, bitch. Deku calls after the red head. The rest of the kids said a silent prayer to any gods who would hear, that they will survive the training. I am sorry I haven't posted in a while. I needed to concentrate on school since they were opening up actual classrooms again. But this break has brought to mind one crucial thing that I have missed, one I must repent for all of time, one thing that makes any of TFS's work key. I have forgotten the own count. I know, I deserve to get Yamcha. But that also brings up a question. Who should get the own count? Person with the most votes gets it. And if they have already been owned before this, I will either go back and add the own count, or simply start it from this time. Put your answer down in the comments, please. Who deserves to be done dirty? Who should be the butt of everyone's jokes? Then should they get it reset? Okay brats, here's how I'm going to. Izuku started but was cut off by one loud blonde. Why should W have to listen to a vigilante like you? You don't even have a physical quirk. Okay, whichever quirks you want, I'll just use whatever I have on me, Izuku said, getting a bit tired of this blonde. The walking copier smirked and tapped Metal Gear Not Solid, explosives for brains and my little brone, and not in the fun way, before charging at Izuku, covering himself in metal and propelling himself forward with explosives. Izuku sighed and pulled out his collapsible titanium staff, moved to the side as the definition of a blonde was closing in, spun and smacked the blonde hard in the face, sending him back and on his back, dazed and groaning. Quirks don't mean shit if your opponents are smarter than you. So in your case, he says, bringing the staff down hard in between the injured boy's legs, like a cartoon character playing whack-a-mole, causing him to screech and curl in on himself before passing out. As you can see, quirks aren't everything. Eraserhead, he fights quirkless. Tails and Handy Mandy basically fight quirkless. Their quirks make their hands bigger, or give them an extra limb. They are useful, don't get me wrong, but those are barely quirks. It's almost like someone was running out of ideas for quirks. But in this quirk-saturated world, you need better control and to strengthen your quirks, especially if you're going to take the licensing exam. So to start, I'm going to need to check with some people before we start, so start thinking of ways to improve your quirks or moves or whatever. Ponytail, Split, come here. Tall and Rich and Sho looked at each other before going over to Izuku, while hearing other students whisper and talk about what was going to happen. Sho, have you been working on using your fire? Izuku gets a nod. Okay, I want you to work with Poison Ivy's daughter and have her continuously attack you with her vines while Premature Boy and Fish Boy sends attacks at your ice. Morbucks, I want you to continuously making dense throwables for Ghosty and Lady's Viagra to throw at dense and denser, while also shoving food into your mouth. And if I see any of you stop for any reason in 45 minutes, I'm going to shoot them with this, he says, taking out a SPAS 12 shotgun, before turning to the others, taking out a stack of folders. And that goes for the rest of you. I am also instructed to tell you I'm not using live rounds, but it will still hurt. So complain, stop or annoy me in any way, and you will see how much this hurts the rest of you. Your homeroom teachers are pansies and made training schedules for the rest of you, something about not wanting to hospitalize everyone or something. Now get to work. The classes scatter to follow his instructions, getting into groups, collecting their folders and starting their training. Todoroki, your boyfriend is scary, whispers Tetsutetsu, already using his quirk, who was passing Shoto to joining Momo, Kirishima and the others. A split second later a loud gunshot was heard, followed by a strangled cry of pain and thud. The gym went completely quiet as everyone looked to see Tetsutetsu on the ground gasping for air, still covered in steel, clutching his chest in the fetal position, what looked like a small sack next to him. Then as everyone looked over at Deku, who had his shotgun brazed to his shoulder, looking about ready to fire again. Everyone was quiet, scared about what the vigilante would do. Izuku walked over to the coughing, gasping teen, shouldering the gun. Once next to him, Shoto and the others watched as Izuku crouched down. What was that tin can? All they heard was more gasping and coughing. That's what I thought, Hanjaku, he says before walking away. Someone get this Hanjaku to Recovery Girl. Members of Tetsu's class picked him up and dragged him to Recover Girl's office, while most everyone went back to training. All but, how many lives have you ruined or hurt with the things you've done? Again, the gym goes quiet as everyone turns and watches Mina standing there glaring at Izuku's back. The boy simply turns his head to look at her, smirking. How much bread have you eaten in your life? He simply asks before turning back and going to a raised platform. The teens inside the gym share a collective shudder. Tetsu was right, his boyfriend was scary. Shoto just couldn't understand why he found that hot, as he and the others returned to their training. After a few weeks of training under Izuku, where he had them do different workout routines. By doing so, all their quirks have improved drastically. After helping Shoto increase his max output for both sides of his quirk. He might not have reached his full power yet, but he can easily freeze the training hall or turn it into a sauna, and that mixed with Mushroom Girl's quirk, caused some problems for that day. But for Izuku, who always had a small breathing mask on him since his near run-in with Midnight during his time as a vigilante, got to watch everyone else choke as they ran outside to Recovery Girl. Using the improved cold, Izuku had Momo and Cementos to build a big cement bunker around Caramel Boy with enough of an opening Shoto to constantly pump more and more ice in to turn it into a freezing meat locker, while Dog Boy was free to explode and go wild. The plan being if they could make him sweat more and easier, he could make bigger or different kinds of explosions. But unlike usual, Deku wasn't here, neither was Shinso or Todoroki or Minoma for that matter, but while the hero course were training, present Mike, Aizawa, and Hawks came in, Hawks and Mike laughing, Hawks carrying a toad, and Aizawa pinching the bridge of his nose. It's not funny, you two. Aizawa grumbles. You're right, it's hilarious, Mike said. Sensei, what are you talking about and where's Deku? Ida asked, causing another wave of laughter from the two blondes. That's why we are here. Todoroki, Shinso, and Minoma were out last night while Deku was out on another one of his walks, Aizawa said, starting to explain what happened. Todoroki and Shinso had snuck out of the dorms late to get some snacks from a gas station. Minoma had tagged along for some reason. It was going to be a quick and simple run, until a group of 5 flashily dressed gang members charged in, all wearing strange but similar armor, ranging from a short man to 2 big buff super heavyweight-looking man with what sounds like theme music, posing in strange stances, the 2 big men facing away from everyone, bent slightly so their butts were pointing to the others. The 2 shorter members stood on either side of the leader, one leg lifted in a figure 4 and one arm raised, and the leader of the group feet together, knees bent and spread on his tiptoes. After holding the pose for a few minutes, they all got into a line, so that everyone's face can be seen standing behind the one in front of them. All of them had different color skin. Okay everyone, nobody move or make noise. We are the Ginyu Force. We are here to food and money. A few people tried to make a run for it. Bird? Right, he says as he rushes after them, appearing back with the civilians who tried to run. That was fast. The purple one, who seemed to be the one in charge, says, not sounding at all surprised. Well boss, it's no problem for the fastest man on earth. The blue one replies. Now men, you all have your assignments, go. The leader says. The men spread out, collecting drinks, food and money from customers or the register. The short one approaches Todoroki and Shinso, reveling to be green and have a second pair of eyes. Okay, kids, money and valuables. Is your quirk to make you look like a dog? Todoroki asked, chuckling. What? Do you want a biscuit? Do I look like a dog too? He was cut off as a dog biscuit smacked him in the face. What the hell? What? Too stale? Shinso asked, attempting to use his quirk. You cocky little BR, he tries to say but falls under Shinso's control. Knock yourself out, Shinso said. The short guy proceeded to punch himself hard in the face until he collapses. Minoma was surprised they would do that, and wondering what the other villains were thinking, but kept quiet as a giant redhead bodybuilder villain approached them. Hit recounts music. A cheesy resting entrance music starts to play. Heroes, you think that just because you're in you're the best there is at what you do. But let Recoum tell you something, brother. You ain't no Wolverine. And you ain't got what it takes to step up to a 5-time champion. Champion of what? Minoma asked, totally confused about what's happening. The red-skinned one comes up after securing the other customers and the exits. This fight right here is gonna be a blooming slobberknocker, it is. Shinso had to choke and cover his mouth to keep himself from laughing at he over-exaggerated Australian accent. Then the tall blue one came up next to his partner. You can just feel the intensity. Minoma was just getting more confused about what was happening. Who are you talking to? The audience, the blue one said, motioning to the frightened customers, followed up by his partner. We're doing commentary, mate. You see, heroes, you sit here and brag about how you're the mightiest in the entire world. Well, look at where you are now, scared. You talk about your legends and your symbols and your pride, but that doesn't mean a damn thing to this man. Because the name's Recom, and it rhymes with doom, and you're gonna be hurting all, too? So, says the buff redhead as he does a fighting pose, ending in a flat pose, standing on one foot with the rest of him parallel to the ground, accompanied by some of the younger customers cheering, thinking this was a show, but it soon dies down as the three students glare at Recom. Minoma, who has had enough of this and wasn't about to be shown up by 1A, let alone by Dekus Boy Toys, narrowing his eyes, wrestling's fake. He says, receiving booing from some of the customers, with a slight "you su diddlyuck" being heard. Oh, go to hell all of you. And if it means getting this damn thing over with, then I'm just going to have to beat your ass. Now hit my music. Step into the Grand Tour from Dragon Ball GT starts playing. Oh, the F***K with this. Minoma taps Todoroki's shoulder, copying his quirk, then releases a blast of flames at Recom, burning a part of the store along with it, and then charges up both hands. Suck it, jabroni. Minoma fires off both fire and ice blasts in front of himself and fires it at Recom, causing an explosion. Todoroki and Shinso duck their heads due to the intense temperatures. The smoke eventually clears out. Well, everything went better than expected. Minoma starts but is interrupted. Recom does a pose while slightly scathed, having lost his armor. You talking more smack, hero? What? How could you possibly get up after a hit like that? Minoma asked, shocked. Silly hero, the only thing Recom sells is merchandise. He says, pulling out a bag and dumping out a bunch of Recom-themed merchandise on the floor, including a Recom vibrator, which starts vibrating. Oi, birder, bet you Recom don't even leave a body. The red one says to his companion. Please, you already owe me a Japanese soda from our last bet? The blue one replies. Well, you still owe me a Japanese burger from the one before that. While the two were arguing, the fight was still going on, hitting Minoma with a heavy elbow before grabbing him, earning a chant of pile drivert from his companion, and pile driving him onto the ground before jumping back for distance. He's setting up for the Recom eraser gun quirk. The blue one calls the blue one, still acting as announcer for the fight, while all the time making comments how he's the fastest thing in the world. This is vintage Recom right here, comments the other one. Recom, eraser? The large man says, putting both his hands above his head. Minoma is seen panting, bleeding. This could be the end. Guin. He fires an energy blast from his mouth, but gets nailed in the back of the neck by Todoroki, who cred ice on the ceiling, making it fall, forcing his mouth closed. Idiot. Shinso grabs Minoma and avoids the blast, causing it to collide with the back of the store, obliterating it. Oh, last-second interference from Team Bratz, calls out the red one, not sounding too worried. Recom stands there, his mouth is all messed up from Todoroki's earlier attack, missing teeth. Could Recom get a mirror? He feels like he might have chipped a tooth. Dear God, what happened to your face? Todoroki asked, surprised. According to the rules in Reg, he's allowed to take on both of these new challengers. Says the blue one. Sounds good to Recom. He says before starting to beat on Todoroki and Shinso, not answering Shino's whenever he asked anything. He continues till they are bruised bloody. During this time, Izuku had been having his moonlit walk, having also escaped Aizawa's latest attempt to keep him out of trouble, which was simply to have elbows and balls to secure him. All he had to do was strip and get free, then get replacement cloths. Now free, he's walking around when he hears commotion in a small store. Looking inside, he sees Shin, Todo, and who was that other one again? Oh right, copycat. Well, these guys made the mistake of hurting what was his. Izuku blitzes inside, quickly swinging his extendable metal staff and smacking the blue and red one, using them as jumping points to get to Todo and Shin, all within a few seconds. Jesus, that was fast. Not as fast as me, considering I'm the fastest in the world. But compared to the average person, the blue one said, stammering, as if he was trying to figure out what to say, as Izuku gives Todo and Shinso some painkillers and bandages so that they can fix each other up. We get it, mate. It's cool. His partner commented. Hey, Rikum was in the middle of a match here. So how about yo? The red-haired wrestler yelled but was cut off. Sir, I am talking to my boyfriends. Izuku said, looking back at him. Oh, Rikum apologizes. He says before releasing. Wait, what am I apologizing for? Rikum's gonna kill you. Izuku ignores him and goes back to talking to Todo and Shinso, finding out what happened, which further infuriated the hothead. Rikum will not be ignored. Sir, I am trying to talk to my friends, he says before turning to Monoma. Hey copycat, we're friends now, right? K off, was his only reply. The best, he says before tossing him some painkillers. That's it. Rikum has had enough. Feel the strength of the Rikum Ultra Fighting Miracle, yells the villain wrestler. Sir, Izuku yells, smashing Rikum in between his legs, the blow making the Biger man squeal, clench himself before he slumped forward, his destroyed outfit showing of his ass as it's sticking up and knocking him unconscious. I will fight you in a minute. He then turned to Monoma, as the wrestler groans weakly. So, anyway, knock off, what happened to you? Did you get beat up by this guy? Monoma said, trying to figure something up when he said, I fell down some stairs. No you didn't, a kid said before Monoma cut him off. Shut up before I throw you down a flight. What the bleeding hell? We were having a right rip snorter here, and then this piker shows up and just like that it's good night, Irene. The red one starts yelling. We get it, you're from Australia. Todo says. He's making fools out of us, jeez. The blue one says. You're bloomin' right he is. We'd better bust out our special technique, his partner says before both of them start powering up and shout, seizure procedure. The two combined into a whirling blue and red vortex, as the store starts flashing red and blue. Monoma, whatever you do, don't look directly at it. Monoma? Shinso said, covering his eyes with Todo, looking over and seeing Monoma with his eyes rolled back in his head, foaming at his wide-open mouth, and moaning unintelligibly. No way. No one resists the seizure procedure. The red one demanded. Plan B. His partner shouts before the two lands next to Izuku, one behind and the other in front. All right, you bastard. Prepare to feel the wrath of the Ginyu, the red one says, standing in front of Izuku, earning him a punch in the face. Arg. You goddamn wanker. You punched me in the dash, this earned him another face punch. Arg. You did it again. Izuku punches him in the face again. Stop it. Stop it. Izuku punches him in the face for the fourth time. Oh, what did the captain tell us to do in this situation? He thinks back to what his boss said. Jeez, if you ever find yourself being punched repeatedly in the face, always remember to, a fifth punch to the face cuts the thought short. He cut off the captain. So, aren't you gonna dodge any of these? Izuku asked. Oh, that's what the captain. He says before Izuku punches him in the face for the sixth time. He turns to his partner. Birder. Support. Well, you've got very nice hair, you're a beautiful shade of red, and honestly, you're the only guy I can rely on this team. His friends responds. I meant punch him, you daft bastard. Oh, but thanks, you know? That did really cheer me. Izuku sighs, punching him in the face, again. God, I think he broke something that time. The two starts attacking Izuku together, with Izuku easily blocking both their attacks. He then counterattacks by sweep kicking the blue one off his feet and then gets back up and holds his hands near his face, All while, You Can't Touch This by MC Hammer plays from one of the phone's ringtones, the music pausing at word stop. Deku time. He jumps up, does the splits, kicking both of them hard, much like Madara does during the war, sending him into opposing walls. Alright, this is just bloody stupid, the red one says. Calm down. We gotta come up with a plan. Listen, if you use your crusher ball on him, I can rush him the moment he tries to dodge. He may be fast, but he's not faster than the fastest guy in the world. His friend says, Hey mate, we need to talk about this whole fastest in the world thing. First off, the captain has been training longer and harder than you, making him stronger. Yes, so? Well then, correct me if I'm wrong, but being stronger means he's faster, yeah? Well okay. Maybe. And the boss Gata is stronger and has a better quirk than all of us? Okay, that's just not fair. And if you think about it, Guldo can stop time, so that technically makes him faster than... No. Okay. I am not slower than F*** King Guldo. You don't know what it's like. Everyone has something special. I don't. What am I? The big blue snake guy. That's all I've got. The blue snake-looking guy said, his voice starting to break. That's all I've got. Geez, mate. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to hurt your feelings. I just want to be special. Something to call my own, you know? Mate. You do got something special, you're me mate? Dude? No, really. Remember when I had to move me piano into me flat and Rikom was too busy with his match in Guldo? Well, he was Guldo, but you got those ivory keys up those 5 flights in no time at all. You're me best mate. Thanks, jeez. You're my best friend too. You know, after all this is over, why do you say we head off to Denny's and just have a good old time? Sounds good, mate. But remember, you still owe me that soda. You're right, I do. Now, let's go show that bloke what for. By now Izuku is hungry and bored of this and attacks the blue one by kicking him the back, sending him flying towards the ground, only to be caught by Izuku, who throws him onto the ground, rendering him unconscious. Say, do you know where there's a Denny's around here? He asks the red one. Birder? No. He can only cry. Butter? That'll go great on my grand slam. You just killed me best mate. I'm gonna get the captain. And he's gonna beat you up. He yells as he runs back to his boss. Captain Tathan,